I call the Washington County Board of Education called meeting to order. First on the agenda is our general purpose school budget. I'll turn it over to Mr. Boyd.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll
I was
just
gonna
go
say,
by
I
my
don't know if
computer.
they wanna sit through all that.
Everybody okay? Let the Lewis group go ahead and present. All right.
Sure you don't have somebody else that wants to talk?
You got them packed in here tonight.
Sorry.
Signed up to speak to the board.
That don't say what I'm.
You better get ready. It might be rough on you all.
Todd's got to make up for last time, see, so.
Yeah.
I thought we could grant them tenure.
If I was on the right one, they are first on the agenda. I'm sorry.
We'll just kind of move ourselves over here. Where would you all like to start tonight? Would you all like to start with security upgrades first?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll let you, because it's just us, so.
Okay. I mean, this is actually really good. We can have some real good
And it is live.
discussion.
We are live streamed.
Ginger just really wanted to come so she could work the touch screen there. So she was pretty impressed by it earlier.
Have water.
It's
Have water. I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I guess the purpose of tonight's discussion about security upgrades is to, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, is to kind of figure out what the direction might look like for the security upgrades and how we might want to tackle that. What you're looking at here right now is a slide of all the schools and we'll say an estimated approximate cost of security upgrades at each of the schools. I want to go back just a little bit to last time that I was on Zoom, that Lewis Group was here when we presented the original numbers, and just explain again about how we went about assigning some costs to each of the projects. And very simply, to be honest, it was a per square foot number of what we're seeing in the market right now for renovation and new construction. In some ways that might not be exactly fair, because, and what I mean by that is just from the standpoint that if you're going to go in there and you're going to put a wall up and you're going to put a couple doors and that kind of thing, and we draw a box around it and say that's a certain amount of square footage, and then we assign a per square foot number to that square footage, that number could be larger, could be smaller, depending when you get in there and you actually do the work. Are we, can we get in there, can we do the work and not have to put any new flooring down? Or do we have to replace flooring? And are we just touching it up, or are we doing the whole room that is, that encompasses? So that's why we thought by putting a per square foot number on it, it just kind of encompasses everything. And then if for some reason there are some things, the way we look at it is there's probably going to be some that we feel like are going to be less, and there's probably going to be a few that may be a little bit more. And so hopefully in the end it kind of evens out. And so that's kind of, I just wanted to explain that again, so in person, because I think I did that over the phone last time. And just so that you guys would have an idea kind of how we came to the numbers that we came to. If you remember, there was a construction cost, if you total these things up, somewhere, we had a range in the $3 to $3.5 million. After talking with Dr. Adams, he wanted to put a little bit of money in there for FF&E, so that's furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So, in case there are some things like some mill work, like I remember, I'm not sure which school it was, but I know that, we were doing a new administrative suite, a smaller administrative suite. trophy case or something like that, then there's a little bit of millwork that has to be done, that sort of thing. So we have a number in there for FF&E, and then just simply what I talked about as well was a contingency. We think just based on the type of work that this is, no matter how good a drawings that you have to begin with, from the standpoint of what the maintenance department can give us on the school, you just never really know what you're going to get into until you get into it, and that just happens in renovations. Hopefully it goes smooth, there's no issues, but then you run into a pipe that's not on the drawings that was there, and then we got to reroute it or whatever, and that's cost to do those sort of things. So that's what the contingency would be for, which brings the total estimate somewhere in that $3.4 to $4 million range.
Now, your estimate is figuring, like, does your estimate have a new floor in and all this? Because that, you're not gonna be replacing the floor, that's for sure. So, why would you replace the floor?
Well, you could, if you're gonna take a wall out of a room, and it opens up the room for a different type of use than where that wall lay, you gotta come back and replace it with something. Well, what if
You tile it.
What if you tile it? What if you put something in there, but you don't really want it to look like you took a wall out, right? And you can't get that vinyl floor anymore, and so you got to change it. And so for that area, you're just going to take it all up and put new all floor down. We don't have to do that, but in terms of cosmetics or the way you want that product to look like, I'm assuming, and I know that can get us in trouble, but I'm assuming that you would want to make it look like it wasn't a renovation that had been done in that particular spot. But that's a decision that can be made during, a little bit further into the design process when we know a little bit, when we get a little bit more into the details of it. I don't know, I'm not supposed to point or you're supposed to point.
No, go ahead, feel free to.
Todd, like on Ridgeview, for example, and I think I understand why we'd have to build outside on Lamar. Crockett's inside, we're not gonna have to do anything outside there. Grandview, we're not gonna have to do anything outside there. Westview, I don't think there's anything outside there. But I think Ridgeview stood out to me about building a wall, building it out. I think Paul was talking about that when he was up here last time. But like Ridgeview, could we not just step into that atrium area that they have right there and do everything that, I guess what I'm saying is could we minimize that? One project that stood out to me was the Ridgeview School. Instead of having to build a new wall on the outside and connect it into the building and open it up more, could we do that?
I thought Grandviews and Ridgeview's was like really,
Yeah, Grandview's similar to that too,
very
Chad, I believe,
similar.
wasn't it?
It's like.
Was they building outside on it too?
Can we pull up the
Yeah,
other?
too cool.
I think we have another.
They're just so, they're similar, so I was like,
You need this?
Grandview was all inside.
Yeah, Grandview's inside, Ridgeview is outside.
Okay.
Well, like on Grandview or Ridgeview, I just don't know that we need to spend that kind of money for building them, getting an extra 100, 200 square foot or whatever outside the building.
When we do it.
We're looking at Ridgeview.
Because once you go through those doors, you got a lot of room.
it's the same way at Grandview.
Well, remember, that is a maid in both the Grandview as well. Both of them are main hallways.
I mean, the other ones that made sense, but that was one that stood out to me.
There was great.
There was
There was
Grandview.
Grandview.
Yeah.
So the next,
That's Lamar.
so this is existing. And here we built on the exterior because
That's
all
Lamar.
That's Lamar.
That's Lamar.
We're talking about
We're
Ridgeview
talking
and
about
Grandview.
Ridgeview.
It's back up.
Ridgeview, that's Lamar.
Oh, we are talking about Ridgeview?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Sorry.
So there.
There's
Grandview
Grandview,
was
we're-
internal, Ridgeview was the addition of
Yeah.
external structures.
Here, that's easy.
You just passed.
And I should have asked
There's Ridgeview.
Mr. Boyd about this beforehand, but I thought we could save not building on the outside
So in some of these cases, part of the issue was egress. And I know that some of the school had some issues where, I don't think it was in this one, but in the other school, basically the basketball game with egress from the gymnasium, or all the events with egress to that inside. So, and also keeping that hallway, that egress way from the hallway.
Yep.
So we could come in, but it ended up being really small, and it just has a lot of people congregating in that area.
Well, I know it's one of our bigger schools,
Yeah.
so
They
I'm
wouldn't
not
be
saying
going through the
it's.
ball, through the front entrance at Ridgeview for basketball. They'd be going out the other
No,
end.
it wasn't on Richmond. It was, like I said, it was in one of the other schools.
Okay.
That
South
had
Central.
yeah, they had the gym on the other
Yeah,
side.
that was a small.
Yeah. So this one, I think
If we were to,
consider how it
if we were to
stands.
flip this, it enters into the egress, or into the path of, I think your shirt's
Oh.
touching it.
It's very smart.
Just,
Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
there you go.
It is, right? I think if you flip this, then it starts.
Yeah,
to
it makes
enter
that
in.
hallway, because that's a primary hallway. I mean, the way the school's designed, people have to pass, well, they don't have to, but it is utilized as a primary hallway. If you roll those up into under the existing structure, as was stated, you're gonna make a very, for the most part, narrow hallway there.
Or the admin area would be very small. You would in-house probably just one person letting people in. So, you know, it's
Well,
just-
Could be.
Do we need all them rooms right there like that on the outside?
so.
I mean, if you rolled that over to them beams and then still had that whole hallway there, which you're gonna have,
Right.
make them the rooms. They wouldn't be as big.
We tried, yeah,
Right.
we tried and it was really small, and part of it was, after talking to the school, we moved all of that program from here into there, so that they can have a conference room. Because that was another thing, when we talked to the schools, there was the need for a few more offices and where to put people.
So, just one question, kind of following that. So initially, we went from fairly simplistic designs and things that seemed to be, would have been much less expensive. And we got from that to this.
Yeah.
How did we move from the initial designs to these more intricate, construction-heavy things?
Some things where the original plans were not what was existing. So when we got in and we started talking to the schools, some of the rooms were not as they were labeled. And even though we visited the school, after talking to them, also there was a few maybe needs versus wants. And that is, that may be up to you guys to decide what you want to do.
That would still need to be vetted, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think what was done was this was sort of the ideal version of the way they would see this functioning, but kind of like what we're prepared to talk about with the athletics, there's places where we can back off of those things. It's just, think, we don't make, we want to be helping the process, but we don't make those decisions, right?
If you don't mind going back to last there, I don't really remember it doing that.
Yeah, that one we're treating completely different because
I'm
it's
wondering if we
so,
ought to do.
Good, let me ask this question before you move. Can we not flip that, everybody listen here, can we not flip that and make that just one room on each side?
here and here.
Yeah.
So the way it works right now is that the person is on the vestibule, and from there, they come into the admin area. So right now, if they come in here, there's no way for us to vet them
Why?
into this area unless we build the entire thing. That
Well, that's what I say,
costs.
you're just flipping it over. That's what you're doing, you're just flipping it over, making it two rooms. They're still gonna go into that vestibule area that you're showing, but you're only gonna have two rooms instead of four.
It's gonna be tiny, but we can.
You know,
That is a main, hallway
Yeah.
there. To go from one,
Do you remember there were some administrative functions that were here before, and they wanted to move those into this
Remember,
area,
it's 110%.
and that was part of the issue.
I think we're,
And it may be
they
more.
have an option.
When we met with Ms. Lyons, the major concerns we had was how skinny this would be. Kate, if you build this all the way across this way, this not very wide, it's much shorter. And then when we got in here, you can see Leslie was saying if she's gonna move her office staff here, she would need more room for these people to get in. If you make this the vestibule, she was wanting to move her office staff into this area, because somebody's gotta be there. And then to make this room here, to make it symmetrical, we put the other room here so that you didn't have two rooms and then one to make it look smoother. And then once we did that, as we found with Westview and a couple other schools, then you have the old office, and if you don't do something with it, you just got this open space that you can't do anything with. So that's when she was like, well, if we move the people here, we can build a room here, and I get another conference room or another work room. And that's what happened in a lot of those areas. Same thing at Westview. When we moved where the vestibule was going to go and moved the front office to that area, they just had a big office area, and there's nothing you can do with it unless you build more walls and put doors in so that you can make it more functional. So that's where some of this is coming from.
And also, Mr. Riddle, I think what your question about got more complex. I think also in the discussion, it became more apparent about the man trap area. You know, we were talking about originally using just some of the existing structures and just putting doors, but there was no, quote, man trap area where they have to come in and then be brought in and then be let into the main school. So a lot of these designs added a lot more complexity by adding that vestibule, that man trap area.
And at the same time, we're trying to make sure that the school still looks nice. These principals really love their schools and they still want it to look nice, and we're trying to do something that was symmetrical. And it seemed like there was the need for people, for staff to be housed. Like some people didn't even have an office or would share offices, which I guess is fine, but there were some issues with that. So we tried to accommodate all of that at the same time while we were doing this.
A lot of the issues is that you have administration currently back in this area right here. And so if we build a vestibule here and nobody to man that thing and administration stays in this area, you know, they can let them through potentially. They can hit a button and open the door, but then immediately they're here in the lobby area again.
We're right back where we are right now.
We're right back where we are. And so the whole idea of these type spaces is obviously to make them travel through the office first. And have an SRO right here. We always want the SRO close to the entrance. And so can this be flip-flopped? It can. If the answer is yes, it can. It makes this space a lot tighter, and maybe it changes this function back, which we have no problem going back and just having those discussions. This is just kind of, you know, a first blush. Some of them work really, really easy. Some of them need to have a lot more thought put into them. And so after talking with them, this kind of met the needs of the staff and met the needs of the security itself.
Do you have that figure, how wide that is? And how wide that other is, that's if we flipped it?
Not off the top of my head, I don't.
And it is deeper than what it would be if we put it back in the hallway.
When you say flip, are you talking about taking it and flipping it inside the building
He's
to
talking
the
about
outside?
these two right here, flipping.
Right.
So it's here.
Well, I do see that since it is one of our bigger schools, you are going to compact that hallway.
Vince, he was talking about building a wall straight across from the two sides.
And then whatever.
But the only kids that will be using that will be the kids that's going down this left side of the hallway, okay? They'll be coming back that way. Now, is that this way, is that first, second, third grade? Is that what I mean, I can't remember.
Class in the hallway.
It's the lower,
Versus this
lower
side,
elementary.
the ones will be coming from the garage, or from this way, be going around and going toward the gym, cafeteria.
The ones to the left are the lower elementary.
to be the only ones that be using it.
Well, I understand everybody wants their school to look good, and we do too, but I don't want that to cost the safety factor. It doesn't need to look like a prison, but I'll give some of the good looks up just to know that there's a school that I'm gonna have a hard time getting into, so I'm just gonna go on down the road.
Was the original plan, I can't remember, to just have like a entryway there, like a vestibule that they buzzed in? We're doing now, but
I think
We
what we
have to, let me just say this, also on the original plans, when we started looking at that, we had not gone through a programming process at that point yet to make sure to run that through with the principals, if I remember right, on just the original back in the day. And so that was part of the discussion was, before we do this, we need to sit down and talk with the principals and talk to them about how they work and how they enter and how all this functions, this area right here. So,
Well, and I was,
to say that, it was kind of, if I remember right, it was kind of, we just made real quick, here's what we can do kind of things, but it takes more than that, obviously, before you start putting pen to paper like this, or
I just couldn't remember
like this.
what the original was.
Because the vetting worked differently. You didn't have an admin area where somebody would come in. They actually had, I think we were proposing cameras or something like that. But still, the SRO and the person that would let them in are all the way on the other far end.
Across the hallway.
and just, I was gonna say, just as a general statement, it kind of answers your question why they got more complex. And you said this was sort of a first blush. This is really the second blush, really,
Well, this is,
because
yeah.
because that first blush was when we just, without talking to anybody, and we just looked at the plans and said, okay, make a vestibule. Kind of the simplest thing is kind of how we're looking at it. And then obviously that programming effort is going with grads and all the principals and everything and SROs. And that's kind of where we arrived at maybe that lays a little bit of the sort of history of how we got to where we are, you know. And it's all on paper now, so it's not to say we can't, you know, do you go all the way back, or maybe there's sort of a midway position where maybe it's not all of this, but some of it. I mean, I think that has to continue to be vetted. Jim?
Where do we go from here? I mean, do we send this out for bid and then we come back and we'll have firm numbers for it, or what is our next step on this, Paul, Todd?
I think our next, here's what, we've been talking about this quite a bit, and I think what our next step should be is, you know, to really get you know, we've got a lot of contractor relationships, but one that's kind of right-sized, I've got one in mind in particular. I think we sit down with them and have them look and give that next level of more accurate pricing for these. I think that would be the best thing, and then that enables us to go to the next step, which we're prepared and want to talk about tonight too, about with kind of where we are now, about how we might think about it, how we might talk about bidding it. But I think that would be, we can kind of do all that in parallel, and I think if we get those really good numbers, you know, and you know, it's kind of essentially a schedule of values on exactly what's being done, then that's going to be, because we're not cost estimators.
Right, yeah.
And that's always an art, and it's now more than ever, it's really an art.
Yeah.
Now, how did you come up with the numbers originally?
Well, that's what Paul was saying, just sort of the square foot cost numbers.
Okay,
of what's
okay.
just, you know.
Because the way I figured is just a hair over 3 million
Yes.
by what you've got there, so.
But I think Ashford is a big question to Mary Beth's point that she wanted to look at that floor plan, because there have been several discussions about what to do with that school and how to go about it.
Is that one of our schools that we'll be selling or no?
Which one? Asbury? No, it's not.
Okay.
You might go to it, and
It's
it's
not
one
in there.
house.
Okay.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
not
we can.
going
I just
to-
want to add
I'm
one
sorry.
more,
We don't have to go there.
I want to add
think
one
that'd
more
be to the
thing
board,
to
but,
your
I
question,
mean,
Chad.
Yes,
My
sir.
understanding is yes.
The,
It's
we still have to produce construction documents and specifications before it can
One
go
of
to
the older
bid.
buildings we have.
So the next step is not to bid it. The next step is we get somebody to look at it, and we can be developing drawings along the way. We get somebody to look at it and give us a little bit harder number
That could be one.
for you all to consider as we're developing the drawings.
And that's the part I'm saying,
Not in
running
the
parallel, so it's not like one has to happen. and then-
Yeah.
I didn't want you to think that this is ready to go bid,
No,
because
no.
it's not ready to go
Right,
bid.
right,
You
but
know,
I
this
know.
is, but if there was, like, if there was a school like this, if y'all said, hey, all the rest of them look great, let's move forward, we can be pushing forward on those, and we can come back, next month and give you another look at something different here, if that was what the board wanted to do.
Well,
That's no problem.
If you don't care, let's go to Asbury.
Yes.
Please.
Sure.
What he said.
I don't know if it's up or down, I just have to get it.
It's going the other way, I think, it's out of way.
Is it?
I think it's alphabetical order, so Asbury was first, wasn't it?
And as he goes to Asbury, I know you noticed on their overall map, I mean, it was one of the more expensive spaces. So in the, it was, you know,
640,000.
the discussion there was, is of course, now and in the future, increasing its use as far as an alternative school as well as a functional, kind of non-traditional optional school on two different wings. There's no secure entry. I mean, there is, it's locked and it's controlled, but not like this same approach we're taking with all these other schools. So it's a considerable redesign.
Wasn't the right one.
That's why it's so expensive.
Well,
There's
now-
other things that can be done, obviously, but we were working under trying to repeat the same process, putting in a
Right.
entryway, vestibule, controlled access, and then controlling access into the different wings that provide different services in the building.
There was talk before about, merging Midway, Asbury, and central office into one location if we done away with the middle school or elementary school at Jonesboro. That was my thought on this deal is would we need to have that discussion to see if we're serious about that or whether we're gonna keep Asbury.
One of Jamie Gray's big points is the fact that they get so many from Johnson City because of the location.
But he's also getting from Elizabethton and other places like that because
Occasionally,
of the location,
But
so, I mean,
the other point there is, yes, that needs to be discussion with the repurposing of the old Jonesboro Elementary School, whatever it looks like. At some point, this board, and maybe you didn't, but, Asbury came off of that agreement with us because of its location and services provided. And ultimately, right now, it's providing services to students that have been placed there for negative, disruptive behavior.
Yes, sir.
And on the other side of the building, it's still serving as this optional space for kids that just need something different. And so trying to maximize the use of that shared space and dual function, that's where these designs came in. But if we decide just to abandon the Asbury building and we're gonna relocate it into the old Jonesboro school somewhere somehow, there's gonna be cost and design there too.
That's the reason I didn't know with it being an age, it's an old building. It's not gonna get any younger, just like, Jonesboro is, the reason why we're building a new school in Jonesboro. But that was a point I had in the way Asbury
yeah.
is.
And I think with the discussion that we need to have with, 640,000, I mean, that's at the top of the line. If we do that to this building and then we say, oh, well, we don't want that, we want to put them over here, that's just kind of a waste of money. So that, it needs to be, whatever we.
So maybe a good place to jump in, because we've had a lot of conversation about that too. We kind of feel like clearly economically and with the amount of work and disruption, it's the outlier in all this, right? I mean, we were really prepared, from our perspective, is to suggest that we just put it on the back burner.
Yeah.
And maybe I hear what you all are saying, we're kind of thinking that too, and to your point, right? I mean, you don't want to throw good money after bad. So, that's one scenario we talk through is just kind of set it aside, realizing that something's going to have to be done, whether it's new or you renovate, whatever, and deal with the others that I think are more manageable and generally more manageable in scope, and so
Well, I think it's good to have a vision, but the conversation that was just brought up about the use of the Jonesboro facility has to be answered before we would spend, additional dollars. We still need to spend some money regardless, because we could add some technology solutions to continue to strengthen the security without the structural changes. And
Even
do
if we
that.
found, one entrance and said, you're just gonna have to kind of add, because there's so many entrances, and just secure that one entrance and say, this is the entrance we're gonna have to use until then. I mean, I don't know how.
That's what they do now.
That's what they do now?
Yeah, yeah, the essential on the street there is that far right. But that's the now designated alternative area, so most of the students enter there. The back entrance is where the optional students come in and out, but it's a controlled, both of them are controlled entrances. So it's another level of management as far as when you have two access doors like that, even though they're controlled. The design was just trying to follow suit with all the other schools.
Right.
How do we funnel and have a more secure entry process?
Is there an SRO officer at Asbury?
Not full-time, but
Going back towards
there is, and hopefully there will be.
So-
Next year, almost 1,000.
Would it be appropriate to put them on the back burner till we get this and decide what we're going to do? I mean, that's the way I feel. I feel like it would be appropriate just to say, let's put this aside for right now and focus on the other ones.
buys you some time, right?
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
and you need to compare numbers with the other school. If you move everybody, how's that gonna go with everyone else?
we need to know what that would look like at the other, at the other location, and there would be things that we would have to put in place there. And we need to know what that would look like.
Sure.
Rest of the story.
Go ahead, you had something on your mind, Todd.
Well, all I was saying is there are probably some things that we can do there, just not as drastic as that, to help strengthen the security there. And that's probably, what we would suggest looking at, and not do the whole thing, because this was another one of those where it was like, okay, we need one main entrance. How do we accomplish that? And then when you started accomplishing that, then it had effect on program throughout the building, and it was like, well, we gotta move this here, gotta move this. Yeah, and it just, it grew, kind of like,
Snowball.
how can we make it as cost effective as possible? But then when you started really looking at it, it kept growing.
On
So
this one,
are there things we can do right now to strengthen it up, to do a little more than what we can? Yeah, absolutely. And that may be, something that you consider and start moving on the others.
And one thing that comes to mind, if you think, our conversation last time about the security film, I mean, maybe, I think there's a real advantage to that, and, I hope it wouldn't just be viewed as like a token gesture, but it shows that you're doing something to sort of harden that. I mean, it's just something to think about.
Well, I mean, as I said, I think there are measures we can take to improve the safety security without the structural changes in the immediate.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider is they have classes till 7 p.m., which is something else that needs to be.
They have a flexible schedule, so they have, they have a different schedule than all of our other schools.
And I think right now the bus drop-off is over here.
Yeah, such a turn.
Yeah, so it's three entrances to think about, and then location of SRO to think about.
Todd, won't you, if you would, maybe take this one off and then work with it a little bit? And then when you come back with whatever we decide, if anything's mapped,
In the meantime, will you look to see if the other school is an option?
He had the question, right?
go ahead, Felix.
I'm gonna try to make this as non-confusing as I possibly can. With that said, here we go. Going back to all the schools, the whole project, the whole security project. In each school, you've had to design and say this office is here. You've had to move that because of, the SRO or the administration or something like that. I just wanna make sure in all these prices that it is everything that we have to do to make room for something else, that it's not somebody saying, oh, I had to share an office, so I wanna get me an office out of this. Is all of that, that is not the case in any of these schools, correct?
Would you say there's any, I'll ask you
Lamar
a
had
question, Dr. Adams, would you say there's any frivolous program in these designs based on the need?
And we've added some walls, like I said earlier, to some office space. That's no longer totally office space, especially, like I said, Westview, and Ridgeview. I think we put in a wall at Fall Branch and a wall at Lamar in the interior office space, where there's just a cubicle, like,
Partition.
partition there.
So
Functional,
functional, but maybe not, to your question, maybe
Yeah.
not completely necessary to achieve the security.
Yeah, it only happened when, so we did have some program that was just, hey, we need space. But there was some other that it was like, okay, we don't want to go in the exterior because it's going to be more expensive, so where can we locate the SRO? That makes sense. And then from there, we had to move that person somewhere else.
Gotcha.
So that's when we got into that cycle. But there are some of them that it's just like wall, doors, we're done. And then there's like this one.
Well, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't somebody, and I don't mean this the way it's gonna sound, but I don't know any other way of putting it. I don't want somebody to try to be getting an office that we don't need to pay $50,000 or $60,000 for right now, when we need to concentrate that $50,000 or $60,000 to the safety and security.
It's great, it's a great point.
Okay, so I hope that come across non,
Yeah, understand.
confusing, offensive, whatever, but.
Well, kind of keeping our eye on what the objectives there is, right? Which is
Right,
just security.
that's it.
I think the priorities in the discussions were the secure vegetable, eyes on that, and control of the visitors coming in. You know, the establishing, if you need to, a new office area to manage that control, and then visibility and locating the SROs in an area that's visible. And with that, as moves happen, other space became open, and it needed to be made functional.
Yeah.
And if somebody was displaced because of, like, for example, at Westview, we're basically displacing a whole classroom. So we had to then make up for that instructional space, or something that can be instructional space in the existing office that would be moved to the newly created location. So the discussion was prioritize, the controlled vestibule, control of that vestibule through an office area and in a way to manage flow, and then eyes from the SRO in a location that can see, all of the, what they need to see.
Because there was another concern was what they're seeing is not only the entry, they also need to see the hallways, and then apparently the principal and the conference room because of the angry parents.
Well, and the reality too is
Yeah.
our SROs don't sit in the office.
Yeah, they walk around.
They do at times, they are in the office, but they're not always in the office. They're not gonna be seated in the office 100% of the time.
Mr. Flair,
I'd like to move forward, but other than do it in a motion,
we're in the call meeting, yes, you can.
we'll make a motion then that we move forward with this process. Just hold Asbury out. If you don't care, go back to the drawing board with something less evasive for Asbury until we have a discussion what our plans are going forward with Jonesboro buildings. And let's move forward to the, next phase for the, with the emphasis being on the high schools, and I know there's some simpler projects too, but I really want to see us get moving on the high schools.
Can you pull him up and let's look at him?
Well, we got a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, now we can discuss.
All right, pull up the high schools and let's talk about the high schools.
Yeah, if you'll review the high school proposals, both high schools.
Go ahead.
I'm sure it'd be another way.
I can help out where we're going.
If you use
Oh, yeah,
multiple
take a
fingers,
bite.
it
Sorry.
expands.
I think Carol,
I'm going the wrong way.
Carol's gonna move it up and down for you, I think.
Well, he's got it.
I'll say.
But there was a moon, what? For Crockett.
So I guess Boone's
Just wanna make sure.
in front of that.
The first one is where it is now, and the second page is
Correct.
what you're.
Correct,
Plan.
original.
And you managed to keep all of the additions under the existing roof line without,
Without taking any of that main hallway there.
Correct.
Right, that's good.
Yeah, cause that's their main
It
thoroughfare
is,
through
it
there.
is.
There it goes. Yeah, and that was a big
Concern.
topic, a big topic.
So basically, you're just pulling the office up.
And you took a classroom.
Perfect, thank you.
there is that classroom in that pod to the right when you walk in.
Yes. And the SRO was that far behind where he couldn't really see much, so we moved him towards the front where he can also see the main entry.
When he's in.
Yeah, when he's in.
You may look out with two.
So basically, really, you're looking at Crockett, the person's gonna walk in, get buzzed in, he's in his place, then when you turn him loose, he's gonna go wherever he wants to go.
He goes to the admin area.
He goes here.
The
You guys go in there.
That's this
Oh.
vestibule
But
right
This
he
will
here.
be
still-
closed.
But he still can go whenever you turn him loose, he's,
Oh, yeah.
Well, that happens,
Out into the
that
hall.
really
That's in
happens
every
in
school,
any
So that's in every,
Yeah.
every
Yeah, in each
situation.
scenario.
Because the vestibule doors are.
because the offices and stuff still gonna be over there, right? I mean, the check-in people's gonna be over here,
Mhm.
To the right, yes.
That's
But the
correct.
office will still be across the
still
hall.
be across
We
the
have
hall
some
in the other part.
some administration here, there's a teacher's workroom here, just by virtue that they're not using this whole space, so there's a wall there, principal's office, and their assistant principal, and the SRO right here, with a little bit of storefront here, so he can, if he's in his office, he can see out and have eyes on the entry and exit right there.
You know, and obviously this is just a trade-off from what we inherit, right? I mean, it's ideal if all that admin area is contiguous and together, but, you know, if that piece had to get dislodged, you know, to make the secure vestibule work.
Can we
So
go,
it's not ideal, but I think it's about the only way to solve it.
can we go to Danny Boone's? I mean, if everybody, if
Yeah,
anybody
let's
don't
go.
have any
Let's
questions
see
more
what-
on State Crockett.
If Todd could get there.
Right there.
All right, so original.
So right now you enter directly in through the open cafeteria.
So you're building a wall
On the
and
exterior.
an outside,
Correct.
Perfect.
Right there.
We're building a vestibule right out there.
on the outside.
Yeah.
And you're going through the window of that office right there with the door, correct?
Correct.
And then we're
That screen will
basically
disappear,
flipping the
so-
program that they have right now, so it makes more sense. The admin area is in the opposite side. So, and
And
our
where's-
SRO is right there.
Where's the SRO gonna be?
Right there in the middle, and there's an existing storefront.
Right here. That's right.
Okay.
And
So
he's
he can
got
see out the
storefront right
cafeteria
here.
and into the office.
Correct.
So when people are buzzed in, he's got eyes right there.
What's the one above the SRO? What's
So
that?
that was, the principal was, the vice principal, yes, the assistant principal had an office here, so
Right.
basically all of that got.
Okay, okay.
And he's over there.
So basically, you're taking the existing office now and turning it into an SRO and a AP office.
Yes, and we're able to move, there's some printing and copying room, and that all was moved to an adjacent room where the SRO was before. So that's where that's gonna go.
Okay.
You know, what we inherit here, it's interesting, because the end game here, it's not that it's any more secure, but, you know, because it can be more contiguous with the rest of the office, the end game here is that it's really, it's a little better. I mean, overall, again, not secure wise, but it just in terms of adjacencies.
You didn't have much of a choice on that one, though.
That's
You bring
right.
it out.
That's right, you just have to be reactive.
And Crockett
What you
also
get.
with the skylights, that one was kind of tricky. There's some skylights at the main lobby when you come in, they're the triangles on the plan, those were skylights. So we couldn't put any walls in.
Is that right there above, this trophy case, there's a skylight there?
I never noticed that.
I never have either.
There's one on each side.
Okay, any more discussion? We have a motion and a second.
Well, I'd like to amend his motion and take Asbury completely off the list.
He
He
did.
said that.
Well, you said that you wanted to let him change some things and come back,
I
right?
said,
Yes.
take it off, but
Take it off.
to come back with a little simpler design or
Because he
whatever.
said there was
Well, I mean,
things
you
he could
said
do.
simpler design, so I'm saying take it completely off and we keep doing like we're doing up there because we don't know if we're gonna keep that or not.
But,
And I
in the
don't wanna spend the
meantime-
money.
but he said that we could add maybe some security cameras and
he's-
some small things to secure and keep these kids
He's just gonna
safer
bring
at
us
this
back
point.
some ideas
It's-
if we wanna move forward
right.
on it or not. But it's took off, it ain't in this
Right,
motion.
it's not in the
So through
600
this motion, we're asking them to go to their contractor guys
for hard numbers.
for
Go-
hard numbers.
go to the next
Or
step.
as hard a numbers as we can get at this point. right?
After getting some drawings done.
Right.
All right.
And we're gonna still, can I talk right now? I wasn't, you were in the motion, I didn't know. And we're gonna move forward with design, like,
Yes.
start the process, because we need to get going on moving into construction documents.
Okay, correct.
Okay.
Are they none of this that our maintenance people can do?
I won't say none, but I'd say a significant amount of it, no. Now, let me rephrase that because I wanna make sure I have confidence that they have the skill. It's just them dedicating time to this means that everything else they do is not done.
And I will say the scheduling between whoever the contractor, subcontractors, and all that stuff is with our maintenance department could be very confusing, could get stuff left out. Not saying, like Mr. Boyd, that they can't do it, but it's just,
But I'm sure Philip or Jared one will be there and oversee like they were on other projects, right?
Sure, and then, so like, kind of the last mile things, maybe that would be where our folks can come in and close the loop. If there are things that we decide, you know, we're gonna stop here and then our team can finish when the bulk of the construction's done, to save some money, that makes sense.
I don't want to overwhelm our
Well,
maintenance.
Well, I just don't want them to get behind on their preventative and other responsibilities.
Let things go.
Well, the way I'm looking at it is they come in here, they remodeled all this in here, and they didn't get behind. So
Right.
that's what.
I
you know,
understand.
Talking several projects.
Well, hey, if we could get one done by our maintenance, I mean, that's just what I'm saying.
Okay, any more discussion? Jennifer,
Has
let's-
the motion.
Design, we can make decisions.
He did.
Make a motion. He didn't finish.
All right, Jennifer, let's vote, please.
Voting's open.
I ain't got no screen here, I'll say yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Irvin votes yes.
Good job.
Ms. Buchanan.
I'm a turn on.
Oh,
Get it? It says it's been
Yes.
tested.
all approved.
Thank you. Okay, let's go into athletics, please, sir. Or is there something else you need
Well,
to?
can we say, I think it'd be worthwhile to say one more thing about, because if we're going into construction documents, what's that?
I'd say they voted. Yeah, no, this is, I think this is just gonna be, yeah. I think how we do this, like, because we spent a lot of time thinking about, and we thought this would be a lot of what this conversation was about, like how to phase it and everything. I think the smartest thing to do here, you've heard us say things like economies of scale, right? Is, I think we should bid this whole thing as one package, you know? And the reason I want to talk about that right now is because we'll hit the ground running and putting all the sheets together as one. You know, it's different if we put it all together or do all these as separate or, you know, in smaller groups or something. But I think that would make the most sense, and that way we get the ball rolling, get it done faster, and then at that point we can work with the contractor. If it comes to an issue of sequence and phasing, then all of us
with us and the contractor can have that discussion then about how we might phase each project, or they might have enough teams to do, to have several going at one time. I mean, right, but I think you're going to get a better price if you put it's going to be more lucrative to a contractor if they're bidding something that's 2 to 3 million as opposed to a bunch of little,
And I think majority of the board, I mean, speaking for me personally, I like to do it as a whole myself.
Yeah.
Now,
You know,
the governor's supposed to be making some kind of announcement this week, isn't he, on safety?
When it happens, we'll see what he says.
I mean,
Yeah,
is this safety?
Could be, but it's, again, we don't get the details till they're given to us.
Well-
A lot of speculation. There's been
I mean-
things that have been said before that didn't come out, didn't really turn out the way that we speculated.
Well, let me ask this, if he says that there's gonna be money coming for safety, we've already started the safety. Could there be a chance that what he's ascending couldn't go for this, or could go for this?
I would say based on past initiatives, the answer would be yes. We can try to utilize the funds that would be made available because this should meet the criteria. I believe there'll be funds focused on increasing the number of SROs in schools across the state, both public and private, or security guards. But I think there's also going to be structural or other improvements that will be supported in the funds.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll be able to.
And that's, I think you're still checking on that on ESER $3, right?
Well, we were wanting to see if we could utilize ESER 2 for some of these
Small
costs on architectural costs. We really haven't landed on a definitive answer.
Okay, if y'all want to go into athletics then?
Paul Junior's doing that. So I spent time just looking at like the spreadsheet that I shared with you guys, right? With all those costs, and obviously it was sort of a Cadillac. We all know that, and it was a lot of money. So I just took the opportunity. I think Dr. Adams and Mr. Boyd, I followed up maybe the next day with an email just saying, there's a lot of a la carte kind of items. We can back off of certain things. And what I did with the spreadsheet, so yeah, these are the revised. So we'll start with Crockett since that's what's up. And I'm happy to share, just like I did last time, share this document with you. It's the same document that I just went through where you see gray items. If you look here, I just say remove from scope. So kind of the obvious things are, you've got functional baseball and softball fields in place. That was the number we got from baseline, that was 1.3, kind of well, I have it on the old, anyway, over $1 million is a lot of money, right? So, the things that, and again, this is just really my LGA's opinion about trying to knock that number down and meet a budget. So what I went through on this pass, let me just say, the end game kind of on this ended up being, phase one that we all know with the grandstands needs to happen. I feel like everybody's pretty much in agreement on phase one of the high schools. And then it was really a matter of eliminating or backing off, maybe it became some maybe lighter renovations rather than a new building, in certain cases. And very, very small amount of that, and then really putting your money, if we listen to the ADs and the coaches, putting that money into that field house, and it's kind of the elephant in the room because, it was just at a square foot cost, it was sort of hovering at, 4.2 million, right? So if we go Where do I go down? Yeah, just use it. Got it. So, and we can get in the weeds as much, I think you can see where there's things I just marked out from that. And again, every line item is exactly the same. And you know, we're here on baseball, not new locker rooms. You know, we did more of a kind of minor renovation of, if you look on this line, minor renovation of the dugout / locker room areas. You know, again, grade out that whole area and just said remove from scope. Baseball and softball fields, you know, just, because there's a lot of money. You know, took those off of the, you know, off the table, basically. So you're kind of saying softball sort of followed suit with baseball, but,
I can get rid of it.
that do something that, so, so anyway, and the site development costs, you know, there's a lot of things to correct. You know, we all know that with respect to sewer, storm sewer, you know, electrical. You know, those numbers might be able to come down a little bit. I just don't have enough information to really know if we can do that yet. But then I'll just get to the end slide here. You know, so you know where the numbers were before, but this kind of ended up taking our range from 9.3 million to 10 point, in this case 10.9, 10.98 million. So, and that was just sort of a first look, you know, at cutting, and that gets it gets a lot of dollars out of it. It's still a lot of money.
Could you go back just to phase one and see? I don't know, was that the same figure we had last time, 2.8?
Well, the only thing that changed on this phase one, and it was, I'll be honest, it was a little bit of a swag number just because our discussion about keeping the existing lights that you have and putting them on new poles. So that number came down. So that's why that number here it was 3.2 or whatever before. That number came down to 2.889. You can see there. So that was. So I still had, you know, if you follow the blue ones in kind of each category, there was still, you know, there's a lot of utilities and infrastructure. So that's still, you know, pretty sizable number on that site development, that promenade that we're, you know, it's going to change, you know, in this scenario, but, you know, I think we'll try to keep some semblance of that as that pedestrian circulation. And then if we go on up where the rest of the blue items for phase one are. So, you know, I didn't change any of those numbers because we still have to demo. I think that's a pretty solid number from Elubree, the demolition contractor. I think it's a solid number from Southern Bleacher because that's straight from the manufacturer for the bleachers. And then, you know, it's a square foot cost number for the restrooms, concession storage. Can we make that a little smaller? I mean, we've got to meet certain criteria. You know, that's, as you all know, that's even getting a variance, you know, for our plumbing fixtures. I think we'll be able to do that. You know, maybe we reduce some of the storage areas in there. Maybe the concessions get a little smaller. We could maybe save some money there. Probably not a lot, you know. And then,
Well, that figure is 2.8 million
yeah, I mean,
for phase one,
with the change of the lights,
The lights.
that took it down to like 2.8.
which we got new lights, just don't know if we're gonna have to put new poles up. or
And
not.
We will have
and this
to.
number is figuring a new pole, and like I say, it's a little bit of a swag number, so we'll get more accurate numbers on it.
So phase one would get us new bleachers, restrooms, and concessions, basically.
Yeah.
And set the foundation for that promenade concept.
Right. That's right. And then have all the infrastructure in for phase 2, 3, and 4 if we ever go there.
Yes. I mean, we'd have to design it ahead far enough so
Correct.
we don't paint ourselves into a corner.
Yes.
That's the
Right.
thing. But I think it's smart just to make those kind of duck banks and, you know, those in that linear fashion along that, then you're just tapping and coming off of that, you know, at various locations.
In the total bottom line of 10+ million, is that including the soccer locker room and the 4 million for field house?
No. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think it was
Yes,
everything.
yeah, I'm sorry, that included the
It
field
was all
house.
phases
That's
and all
correct.
things that
That
had been
was,
worked out.
yes.
And that went from 15 to 10, basically.
The high end went from 15 to 10,
Yeah.
yeah. It got about 5-ish million out of it.
What is the $4 million for a new field house and a 6,000 square foot soccer dressing room? That just seems a lot. Where they dress now. What
You know-
they- I mean, that's
You
a
know,
lot.
and you know how we arrived at that number was, you know, in discussions with the AD and the coaches and the sizes of the rooms, and we put that together in not really a floor plan, but just a size of a building that was that square footage, and then square foot costed it. So I would say that if we build it that big, that's probably a pretty decent number. Can we make it smaller? Yeah, but we'll have to have some direction, you know.
Was
Well,
that
I
because
think-
of storage?
We got
I don't
asked
know.
to also put other sports, so it was not just soccer, and also account for both genders, so we had girls track and field, boys track and field, and then you had home and visitors, we had soccer, we had football, track and
Track.
field in that building.
There was some
and-
Title IX stuff that come in.
Oh,
Cross
so-
country.
So that is
So
in
it's-
which building or both buildings?
Well,
Or what? I
beach
mean,
school is a little different, right? I mean, it was, I remember, it was boom, what's that? Yeah,
This one's one big building.
yeah, in Boone, it was one,
That's just a tremendous amount of percentage of the project for a couple of buildings. You know, you think you'd want to put it in your fields, stands, concessions, restrooms is where you want to spend your money. But that's, to me, is excessive for those two buildings in the total scope of the project. And that may be what the ADs want, but that's just a pretty big ask in my opinion. We'll probably
Was that in
maybe to
phase
see what
one?
they are or scale them down or something.
That's in
just a
phase
lot.
4, isn't it, the buildings?
yeah, you know, and that's the one that didn't really change, because it was five and some change before, because, like I
That's mainly
said,
square footage, isn't it?
yeah, it's based on that square footage, so I wouldn't, without having more conversations and vetting it further, I wouldn't.
Was
Can we
it,
cut it? Yeah, I mean, it can obviously be cut, you know, but I think somebody will have to give us direction.
was it one room, was it one building with all of those in it, or was it two buildings with,
So each school's slightly different. It's Crockett that is the one building that pretty much had all of the functions.
Two-story building.
And it's the two-story building that, you know, the coaches and the ADs talked about, which makes sense because you've got that change in the grade. You come in kind of on the high side, and then you have the low side that comes out of the field.
That was boom.
That's boom.
So, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Still,
Grading-
as much as I work with these, I can still.
Mr. Walker?
So phase one is the bleachers, that's everything that we know we're gonna have to start with, the destruction of the bleachers, the concession underneath, all this stuff. So I make a motion that, hold on just a second. We are at the same place with this as we are the security and with having to talk to a contractor and finding out prices, or where are we at?
Yeah, I think we could do the process in exactly the same way. Like, if you guys say tonight, go, we'll start into our construction documents, and then run in parallel at the same time, having somebody, as we develop those drawings, you know, get more detail on there that have a contractor, could be the same contractor, or I could find, we got a lot of contractor.
Vince, if you will, let's wait to
Can
see
we look at
booms.
see
Let's
booms?
see
Yeah.
booms.
Okay, then maybe do your motion, if you would, rather than two separate, you see what I'm saying?
It's okay.
I still think we need to do some more studying on this before we move forward. I think just like with those field houses and things, we don't really know what they are. I don't know what it is.
but we know what phase
It's a lot
one
of money.
is.
There's nothing in phase one like that.
Right, but it's all supposed to tie together. So I'd just like to see a more complete look at this stuff, and then again, would like to look at it with our administrators and our athletic directors, just so we're all on the same page instead of us just moving. We wanna move and we need to move, but we need to know what we're doing when we do move.
You're exactly right. I mean, to know what that end is, you know, I think there's nothing in phase one that we would do that, I mean, that's the whole thing of having gone
That's
through
any
the master.
different, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even if that building got a little different, it's probably still gonna be in the same place. You know, if it got a little smaller or configured a little bit differently, it's probably still gonna be in roughly the same place, right?
So, you know, we were moving and potentially flipping ball fields and things. If we leave them in the same places, how are we gonna tie in concessions with all ball fields and things? And what about restrooms with the existing ball fields and things? That's just what I'm thinking, to tie it all together more. If we change all that, well, it's different than what we were looking at before.
Well, you're right. And again, there's nothing in phase one that what we're proposing as part of phase one, that we couldn't do this either way. This cut way back, or the whole $15 million, the whole enchilada, right?
Right.
So there's a little bit of safety in that, you know, because, I mean, for one thing, you just have a need. You've got bleachers that are falling down that are unsafe. So, you know, there's part of the upgrade that is a safety concern, and building that infrastructure in. You know, there's nothing that we do there that we're not gonna be able to connect and tap onto, and you know what I'm saying?
So phase one is, if we do phase one, it's irrelevant to 2, 3, and 4, if and when we
Yeah.
ever move forward.
Yeah,
There's
because we
gonna
can
be-
still flip the ball fields or not, you know, in this, it's gonna change the end, but it's not to say, it's not gonna paint us in a corner. I mean, we'll do that the way we'll do that promenade, to where, you know, it'll change it a little bit, you know, it gets a little tighter. But, you know, if we did flip the ball fields, then we just add, you know, we just make it wider the way it was originally gonna be, right? So your concerns are very valid, you know, but I don't think there's anything in phase one that wouldn't allow us to do it either way. I think the à la carte buffet is still open.
Right.
If you will, on
You
that.
still lose, I know what you're saying, you still lose the economy if everything backs up and can share that same restroom and concession. You're gonna lose a little bit of that if they stay the way that they are. You're
Right.
exactly right.
No, that's what I'm saying, for
But-
future phases, we wanna figure out what we're gonna do in them too.
Right.
You know, if we leave it as it is, we wanna improve those facilities as they exist, be with concessions and stands or restrooms and things. If they're gonna stay where they are, they're probably not gonna tie into the promenade. You know, like girls softball at Boone, it's way down there.
It's way down there.
Baseball at Crockett's way down there. So, you know, it may not all tie in together. That's just all I'm saying. We need to make sure we're, in doing this thing, make sure it all ties in together, however we're gonna do it. I get phase one we need to do, we gotta move in, but we just need to make sure it all gonna tie in together in the end. That's why we're doing it the way we're doing it.
We gotta connect, is what you're
Well,
saying.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Whitney, since you said that, I don't think I can support moving the ball fields to softball and the baseball fields. I don't, they're working now,
Right.
and everything, you know, just like the girls' softball field at Boone. We had to do that where it's at because of the Title IX, when that happened. They said, they come and said it wasn't as nice as the boys and something else. I can't remember what it was, Mike, you remember?
Yeah, that was the locker rooms. That wasn't the ball field.
It was a softball field for the girls' softball. It's when I first went on the board, when this
It
happened.
may have, but since I've been on board, the Title IX issue come with the locker rooms.
Well.
It may have when they
there
done
was a
that.
soft- there was
But
an
now
issue with the girls' softball.
We've got some issues now with the girls softball.
And they had to do it, but I don't think I can support,
Well, that's
you
what I'm
know,
saying. If
we're looking at
not
building,
flipping.
I know, but we're looking at maybe having to add on a couple of schools and funds to that, and that's got to come before sports, in my eyes. So,
That's two totally different projects.
well,
That's a different thing. All I'm
Still
saying
takes
is,
money.
if we're doing this, we just need to make sure it all works.
well, I know
Whatever
what
we're
you're
doing.
saying, but I don't know if I can support phase 2 or phase 3 or whatever.
For right now, can you support phase one?
I can support phase 1 because we've had the bleachers on the thing for years.
Mr. Hostone.
Yeah, using the excuse of being new to this and building and all, we talked about security and we're talking about the stands in phase one. Where is the money coming from? How much have we got to work with? I'm not familiar with that, and how much we're talking about when we start adding all of these dollars up for phase one. What have we got to work with?
Well, money has to come from the fund balance, unless we get something from the commission.
Well, you know, to jump in if I may, the five-year capital plan, we have things on there. The board would have to reevaluate those list of things and possibly remove every one of them and prioritize the security upgrades and the phase one of the athletic fields. That would get 75% of the cost, about. So the other would have to be addressed either by fund balance or additional support from the county commission.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Todd, I had one question on Boone, or on the press box. Is there anything regarding the press box for the football
All
to
of that
be
has been
able to
accounted
use for
for in the
baseball?
five-year capital plan. Shipped it
Because we don't have a press box for baseball right
1.5
now,
million.
and we're going 18 rows high, which I think
We've
would be
already spent
quick enough height.
1 point something
But
million.
You're just talking
could
about
we-
for filming?
Yeah, just for a press box. To where
He's talking about just
you can just
overall.
flip around and take care of the press box for the baseball as much as the football in a different season.
Put windows in the back.
Right.
I don't think that we looked at that, to be honest. We did talk about it from a filming standpoint. And then in the bleacher concept as well that we proposed, it's got it's kind of like the football concept, it's got a press box in it.
Right, my thought was if we don't go with the other phases for, you know, say 3 years or 5 years or whenever, you know, at least we'd have a press box for baseball in this first phase, I guess was my, and I talked to Danny, and, you know, he said he couldn't remember if they mentioned that or not, and I said, I will when we, you know, present again.
Looks like it'd be as simple as putting the back
That's
lights
right.
back.
Because it'd be,
You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's,
And that's probably possible to do.
the front would look like the back, because you know,
That's right.
and just, you know, put two desks or two tabletops on each side, and just, you know, have a chair in between.
You know, your scenario, like here at Boone, would be, I mean, it's a little high and remote. I guess,
Do they not have a functional press box now?
No, we had to tear it down. It was down third baseline, and the floor rotted, and we had it tore down. Sure.
You're also gonna have people in stands in the way. I mean,
well, you'd be above that.
Well, you're 18 seats high, so you're gonna be way above it to where you can, I mean, our old press box was down on first baseline for years. About where that one, attack number 10 or something, that was the press box for years there. Floor rotted out, and we had to tear it down.
Are you thinking also that that'd be something maybe temporary for a little while until
Well,
maybe a future phase? Because, you know, you could pull out little pieces of any of these plants. You could replace the bleachers at some point and put that bleacher concept in there.
mhm.
You know, you could do just the infield and turf if you wanted to at some point in time down the road.
well,
So-
and let me say, the spreadsheet that I went through, I purposely left the softball and the baseball bleachers in there, that seeing that as, it's a future phase, but it would still work. And you could put, you know, and these are the ones, if you remember our images from last time, it had the press box. It was part of that
Right,
package, it had
right.
the press box integrated into it.
I guess
I
my
think
thought.
ideally, that's the best solution, but
Yeah, but I mean, if we're gonna do it, you know, I think the cost would be very small to do that, for our use. Of course, we already got, you know, the aluminum bleachers now behind home plate. We just don't have a press box. And I just thought that was something that we could incorporate when we did the football. Maybe.
yeah, or southern bleachers.
Southern
to me
bleachers.
like that's a long way away.
That's my concern. I agree with you.
And
That's
it
my
may be,
concern. It's a
but-
little remote, and I'm even thinking about, you know, when you have substitutions and, you know, you're used to, I don't know, maybe
I don't know,
it's
yeah,
all
I
done
just-
electronically or by maybe
Right.
cell phone now or
But you
something.
gotta get
I
that
don't know,
behind the
but-
plate, too,
There's
those
that
ball
for
strikes.
that.
What's that?
There's an app for that.
Comes in after everything. Right.
But I told Danny I would ask, I mean,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know,
I think it's something.
because
we
it
can
may
look
be
into.
several years if we ever do the rest, you know, and.
We'll ask. I am 99% certain putting glass in the back of that is not an issue.
Right.
You know, I think the bigger question would be, is it too high, too remote, you know, from the baseball field?
I mean, it's better than what we got now.
Well, I would ask the bleacher people what it would cost to put a press box over top of the bleachers that's already existing.
Put it on the back
Base.
of that, yeah.
Well, the only thing, if we ever redone it though, it would be, we'd tear it down.
Is there a way, I know there is, can we see, maybe not right now, but like a list of everything that's included in phase one?
Itemized?
Specifically, itemized list of what's in it, so we can just see, visualize it, you know?
Well, and in that spreadsheet, those categories are there very generally, but I mean, we could absolutely do that. It's just gonna take a little more design work to get into the very specifics, you know, like X number of feet of, you know, pipe or storm sewer, X number of feet.
Not that
Well, we have
specific.
that.
Not that much of
In
the-
general, what it looks like, what we're replacing, the bleachers, the,
Yeah.
kind of generally,
Yeah.
the utilities, are we getting bathrooms, are we getting concessions, what they are and where they are?
Overlay.
That's under the bleachers.
Yeah, I can
But
overlook.
were they included?
Like
where
an
they're
overlay
at,
of
where
phase
does it
one,
lay?
and you add phase two on it, and
Right.
phase
Man,
three.
for
They're
sure,
underneath
on
the grant.
That's
outside,
color
it's-
coded, and the very general, in the most general way, that's the ones that are the blue.
Increase the number of toilets that they currently
So
have.
that's the demolition of the existing grandstand, the new home
But
grandstand.
we increased
Female.
The
that.
building that goes underneath it, which is the restrooms, concession,
that's a-
storage,
Like how many toilets we
the
have to
field
have
lighting,
to
which
stand
again, we provide.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
And then,
We would
the only
be
other
below
thing,
what
that's
would
the
be
bulk of it,
requirement, but we would.
but
Way
the
below
very
now.
important part of
Yeah,
that
we're-
is
we're
just
way
the site
below.
development, which would include, you're talking almost $800,000 there, where you're talking about that part of the concrete promenade, the utilities, and
So we're talking about grandstands, promenade, concessions, restaurants, of course, the
Some infrastructure for the future.
infrastructure things, all that.
And I would say part of the promenade too, it's, you know, because, you know, we'll probably only build in the first phase what we need to get to we're not gonna build it all the way down, you know, especially if we still have questions about if we flip ball fields or not, right? So we'll just build it enough to where we don't paint ourselves into a corner, but you get the circulation that serves the grandstand.
At Boone, where would you put the ticket booth for football? If we do phase one?
Yes. And there's a.
Sorry.
The top on the left. There's an existing building that we're gonna have to take.
So, and I guess, could we just do another drawing or, you know, delete some of that stuff and just put what is included in phase one? A drawing like this, but with what phase one is.
Have y'all got an overlay of phase one and then
Yep.
phase two and?
Phase one?
So phase one is all the blue here, so that graphically, in a plan, that's what it would be. And that's where I was saying, we wouldn't build all of the promenade, we don't know what else we're doing, but we would get. Are you?
Sorry, I'm trying to help.
Yeah, you did well, that's good. You got it right. But yeah, so that's the phase one, you know, we pick up that part of the promenade, the bleachers, and of course, what you don't really see here is getting into the weeds of all the infrastructure and utilities, right? But again, my goal of it is that it's gonna generally, I mean, we gotta pick up storm drainage from other places, so it's gonna bleed out from that a little bit, but it's gonna be mostly concentrated in that area.
So there's no, like, visitor concessions or anything, what's there's there?
Yeah.
If we leave the ticket booth basically where it's at, there's a pretty steep hill from the
Right.
track up to the first part of the blue. Will they enter the bottom like they are now?
Yeah, I mean, we had some steps here that we were to negotiate that. That's what you're talking about. that.
Yeah, where would they enter for a football game? Under this
I-
design right here?
Well, I think the goal would still be that you come onto come onto the promenade here in this area. And I know there's parking down here below and.
Yeah, there's some handicap down there.
Right, that's right.
But I guess my question is, we'd have to do something with the ticket booth, because the ticket booth is down below that.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, if the entrance is at the end of the blue, you know, they'd have to go down to the bottom, buy a ticket, then walk back up.
That you're right.
Is
about
that, is that what I'm?
Yeah, yeah, that's good for
I
them.
mean, many of the tickets are bought online with
Right.
an app on their phone.
Right.
That was
There's
an
an app
existing
for
building we wanted to.
Yes, app for everyone.
I think we definitely need to look at that as we get into this, you know, because the whole idea is, you know, one thing is biting this thing off in manageable chunks, right? Because we all know that we want to start demolition as soon as possible after football season and be ready to go in August. You know, and I think a big part of that is all this finished flat work, that, you know, that even though it might be it's still going to be in process of a multi-phase master plan, but that it looks like a finished product at the end of phase one. You know, it has a finished quality, right, and it works.
Would we be best served before, I mean, I'm fine with sending it to bid and do it, but I really would like to have a place to go. That's kind of what we'd be getting, or an address so we can go ourselves or whatever to a place, you know what I'm saying, similar to what we're proposing for here. It would be nice to have, you know, be total place that we could go to be similar to that.
Mainly in terms of the bleachers. And now we reached out to Southern Bleacher and we got, do you have that list with you? So, and it doesn't have to be Southern
Right.
Bleacher. And also to address, I know Keith's concern last time was drying, the building underneath, drying out moisture. And we did look into that too. I know Todd, you know, one he came up with that's a pretty obvious, little larger scale, but was Carson Newman.
Yeah, if you've been to Carson Newman, all of their
Safety.
concessions, bookstore, restrooms, everything are all underneath. And I'd say the concessions underneath, but it's out towards the more open end, but then the restrooms and everything are tucked back up underneath the bleachers, about as far as you can put them up underneath there. And they're all conditioned spaces, as I looked at them. My son plays football there, so after we had this meeting at the next event, I was there, I took a look at it and took some pictures actually, but they're all conditioned, no hint or smell of any mustiness. And I think that you know, and they keep all their dry goods in there, the shirts, everything, from what I can tell. I didn't talk to the administration, but I think that would be a great one if you wanted to go by and look at something like that, if you want to just look at the buildings themselves. We'd be happy to show you pictures send you pictures. I mean, if it's not an exact one right around here. I think, maybe the new Eagles football field. This Southern I just don't know how many rows. Yeah, I can't remember if they did or not. So I could be wrong, but I'll have to look at the number of rows that they had in comparison.
Problem with Unicorn County, we got to go over a couple years ago, whatever, and see their new place.
Unicoi County.
That
So
was one
Reese told us, Reese from
There's-
Southern Bleacher,
yeah,
they
Southern Bleacher
they did the
did
ones,
that.
he first told me Union County, and I said, yeah, we're doing some work, but I don't think it's Union.
Or
Yeah.
Unicorn.
Unicorn.
Well,
So, yeah.
their
And-
bleachers are closed in, nothing
Right.
falls underneath them.
It's
And that's the way
nice.
these will be.
It's just not the place like we're wanting to put restrooms, concessions
Well,
down.
they had that
They
hill
built it
there.
on the hill.
They had,
Right.
that's what they had to work with.
But I'd like to see one
Knoxville,
like that.
Knoxville has those. Some of the schools in Knoxville, where we've been to football games, they have their restrooms underneath their bleachers and their concessions and stuff like that. And it's,
Okay, any more discussion, any recommendations?
Have we agreed to go with Southern Bleacher, or
Phase one,
are we just using them as an example?
No,
Just-
they're,
that's
just the
just,
draw-
they've been
the
talking
two
to
they've
the
talked
districts to
about.
get the process.
Are we looking to
It's real
bid
similar.
both of them separately or together?
together.
Together, okay.
Where's the price for those? Did I miss that?
Yeah,
hitting at the same time.
And this just kind of flipped backwards from Daniel Boone.
Yeah.
I mean,
But, you know, the goal was to hit both of those in the same place, right? So those line items, those very general line items are exactly the same. It's demolition, it's new bleachers. They're a little different because of the grade conditions, or, you know, you're gonna have those little nuanced differences, but scope-wise, we're trying to make these phase ones exactly the same at both high schools.
where's their existing field house at on that picture? Is that the end of the blue?
So.
Yeah.
Blue, I think on the left side, that's an existing building, I'm not sure what is there.
Yeah, or we can.
That's the little square right there.
It's in that area,
Okay,
Last
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Softball
or just
field
go
is where
here.
the baseball
So
field is.
your price is somewhere $6 million for both places.
Roughly,
Yeah,
yeah.
roughly, that's what that's that estimate.
That's
Right
estimate,
now.
there's nothing concrete, I mean,
Yeah, but that's still
well,
2.8 at Boone.
2.8 at Boone and 3
I feel
million.
pretty good, I mean, really, because we got numbers from vendors, and, I mean, I feel pretty good about those numbers. I mean, those numbers, you know, are more solid than the ones, the future phases, just because the scope is a little more defined, you know? So I feel pretty good about those.
And
And
that's
again, we're getting,
2,300 square, 2,300 seats
yeah,
at each place.
same size.
What's the square footage of the concessions roughly?
It was a 29, it ended up being a 2,900 square foot building. We can look at that a little bit if it, you know, if it maybe could shrink down.
And restrooms be on each side of it?
Yeah,
Roughly.
on the far ends, the concessions kind of hitting the middle.
Okay.
I mean, it kind of.
That's kind of what I thought.
Can we get our 5-year plan and look at it and look at the money wise for this? Because we're gonna
Jerry
have to
said
do
roughly
something.
75%.
I know, but I'd like to see it on paper. Because I think, and we need to talk to Brian, but I think we could pull this security out of our fund balance and then rearrange to help this out so that we don't neglect the other things we've got going on.
Okay, Brad.
So-
can we wait till we get the bids back?
Yeah, because we don't have true numbers, hard numbers yet.
Um, I'm not talking about-
So what's the next step?
That's just a-
What's the next step?
I think,
In the athletics?
I mean, I would propose, if you guys agree, kind of the same thing that we proposed on the security upgrades. We move into, you know, this is almost like kind of a conceptual kind of schematic. You know, we know what the scope is. We can just go right into essentially into construction documents. You know, and I would say we do that. We get the contractor on to take a harder look and get, you know, as we go into this process, to take a little harder look and get, you know, harder, you know, more accurate numbers on it. And again, that can run in parallel with just us developing the drawings. You know, the big part of that is schedule, is we need to get moving on the drawings,
Right.
because we're trying to get this thing bid, you know, early enough that it can be
I would
shovel
like,
ready.
yeah, I would like to get started on the drawings as soon as possible so that we can go ahead and get those done and get the bid out in time, that the contractor has time to sign contracts, has time to order materials, has time to get everything ready so that it's ready to go when football season
Mr. Walters.
ends.
I make a motion that we allow Lewis Group to go ahead with the drawings, construction papers, what they just talked about. The next step in phase 1 and phase 1 only. Let them do what they need to do to
Forward.
to move forward
And David Crockett High School.
for David Crockett High School and Daniel Boone High School.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second, any more discussion?
One discussion out here. What are we gonna do, like Mike said, for ticketing to come into that area for both high schools?
Well, I think-
David Crockett is on the outside.
I think here you've got it's a little easier, because
It's outside the
you've
gate.
got
have
an
a
existing
building.
building that you can still.
It's gonna be a little different at Boone, Whitney, because most
Because
of
of
the
the
tickets now are, what's that called, Brad, they're using electronically for tickets? Is it, no, not, is it Ticketmaster? It's called something else.
But it's like that. It's
Yes,
Yeah,
online
it's
but
like
they're
that.
buying tickets online, and as they go through the gate, they just hold the phone up. So, but there'll be a few that will go down and buy a hard ticket.
Could they move the ticket booth to like the upper?
It's concrete.
No, but
But we could put a shed up there. We could do something.
I'm just trying to help.
our
Things we'll
maintenance
take
did
a harder look
something
at,
for
you know, as
Richview
we
and
get
Greenview, and it's very,
Yes,
I mean, it's not a,
I
We
just
just
want
bought
phase
the
one
little
to
shed.
finish product.
it's
That's what
not,
I-
so.
That's my thing, that we don't leave.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's in the middle of
Yeah,
phase.
we're
It
wondering
needs
why
to
we
look
did that.
Finished off on its own, that's right.
Yeah, I wanna talk about the funds.
Okay?
Now, we're looking at $6 million we're looking at roughly $10 million is what we're looking at for safety and
It's a little over 8 million, about 8.5 million. Safety come in, by his numbers, around 2.5, because we took Asbury off.
I
So,
thought it was gonna be up about 3.5.
no, it was 3 million, then we took Asbury off, which made it 2.4 roughly. And then,
Well, 2.5 and 6.
$8.5 million.
That's $8.5 million now. You know, I said something to Mr. Boyd about ESSER money. We used ESSER money to pay for the, what was it, the lights or the heat, the
HVAC
the
upgrades at
all
your
right.
high schools.
And that freed up $5.5 million. Now we've used $1.5 million or something before, of that for turf.
1.7, yeah.
So there's still $3.5 million roughly left that, or should be. Now, we don't know what the commission's gonna do. They may say no.
Brad, is that figure correct? On what we have left out of the ESSER money for HVAC that we
Well,
swapped?
it's in the approved 5-year capital plan.
Well, you know how
I'd
they
have
are.
to check to get that exact number. We spent over, if you're asking about the HVAC, we spent out over
Tried to
5
honor
million
that.
so far on
They did a good
HVAC out of the
job.
ESSER
Okay.
funds. Your question is, how much do we have left in?
For the ball fields.
Capital.
If you look at the 5-year in
You're
that
talking
fund
about
balance
capital.
line, if we restructured all of the expenditures, how much would we have
We're
available?
talking about the capital plan,
Yes, sir.
not the ESSER funds.
That's right,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
capital.
sorry.
Yeah, just to make a public statement, we cannot use ESSER funds for athletic
Right.
programs.
Okay.
Mr. Cannon?
What is the expense for the next phase drawing that we're talking about here?
You're talking about phase one?
Yes, because you were talking about the set of drawings that you needed to get to the contractors.
numbers.
So
Paperwork.
what
I mean, it's a,
ballpark?
I mean, our fee,
About $550,000.
For all of it.
Well, 8.5 times 7% about.
Because
Okay.
that's not included in these roundabout numbers, right?
I don't know that they've included, they may.
Is that included in these roundabout numbers here?
it is not.
Yeah,
This is-
those are construction cost estimates.
Yeah, this is not architectural and
Not,
engineering.
not
fee.
the
Okay.
A&E.
So A&E roughly cost.
About, through phase, well,
Phase
all
one?
the way through
No,
construction.
just phase one.
Okay,
All
so
the way
all the way
through
through construction's about $360,000.
Oh, that was less than that.
Now, is that,
It's a 6% fee of the construction cost, and so we'll bill according to the construction cost, and if that goes up or down, then our fee goes up or
That
down.
looks up.
so our motion, basically, if it's approved, we'll spend $300,000 roughly to get those costs for the A&E.
That's through construction, that's all of it.
That's through construction.
Okay.
Oh, well, and I take that back. Sorry, I'm thinking just athletic, I did that just on athletic. It's the same thing for security upgrades as well. So when you add the two together, you know, it's 360, we'll say right now, if it's $3 million, you know, I'm sorry, $6 million, then it's $360,000 for architectural and engineering on athletics, and then
Another $2+ million for
and
that.
then, depending on, if we take Asbury out, which I did want to make a note, we have to make sure that we include the FF&E and the contingency in there as well. So that is, like Keith was saying, probably somewhere between 3.4 to 4. I gave a range, say 3.5. And then if you take Asbury out, then it's about 2.9. So our fee, whatever 6% of 2.9 is, you add those two together, that's a total architectural.
About
engineering fee
550,000.
through construction. So that means your construction administration, not just the documents. I want everybody to understand that.
Right.
That is, you know, we're gonna oversee the projects as we're going through construction to make sure we're gonna be your owner's representative, basically. We'll represent the owner through the construction process.
Are you acting as a project manager?
No, we're acting as an architect.
The board will have to determine if you want to do design bid build, or construction management as far as, and then if you do design bid build, who then would be assigned as that project manager?
We'll get Whitney to do that, he's a builder.
He's a board member, he'd have to resign as a board member.
No, he wouldn't charge us nothing.
Oh, he would?
He's busy the next 2 years.
That's just Tim.
He's trying to be a comedian.
But you could have somebody, you know, in the system if you, I'm not adding work to anybody here, I shouldn't have said that.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, any more discussion? Let's vote, please, Jennifer.
It's open. Mr. Irvin, how do you vote? Yes.
Ms. McKinney says yes.
Ms. McKenna
Mine's
votes
not
yes.
popping up, mine's a yes.
Mr. Masters
Yes.
is yes. So all approved.
Thank you. Okay, I think that gets everything. Does anybody have anything for the Lewis group? And we'll, if not, we'll move into our budget.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you, Sean.
Appreciate you all.
When will you be back with updates, or will you go with Jerry, or how will that work now that we've authorized you to move forward on?
Well, you know, we started having, which was really good, I think, having those weekly meetings with Mr. Boyd and Dr. Adams, and we could probably pick those back up, but I think from here on out, it probably makes sense if we're here monthly. You know,
Okay,
just to
that's fine.
Because, you know, we'll be making, now the decisions are getting made, we'll be able to make a lot of progress.
And you will check on that for Boone on the press box.
Yeah, we'll do that, and we'll also try to get some of these tours set up.
That'd be great. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's take a 5-minute recess before we start bridge.
Hang on, let me pause.
Dr. Bell, you didn't get to say anything, but good to see you.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Dr. Gordon.
And you not speak?
I'm here for a motion
call this meeting back to order. Mr. Boyd, we'll start with budget, please, sir.
So, if we can, can we start with the smaller items and then get into the 141 general purpose budget piece? Okay. So as we pass out, what we're going to talk about first, I believe it's pretty straightforward. This is the 143, or the school nutrition or dietary, whatever you want to call it, proposed FY24 budget. And it's a one-pager. And if you will look at this, you all have to, of course, it's under your responsibility to approve, have to approve this budget, and it goes to the county commission. So what's been proposed is, you'll see FY23 on the left column. That has currently been approved. At the very bottom, you see the revenue and you see the total expenditures. If you look at FY24, you'll notice that this kite has proposed a budget that actually is less than FY23. And this includes following suit with what the board is working on what you had directed us to do, is add the $3 to the classified, hourly wage. So she's included that process with some other adjustments, and then presented a budget that is less than FY23.
Motion to act on this?
My recommendation on this particular budget is consider approval as presented.
We have a motion, we have a second. Discussion? All in favor? I'm sorry.
What? Can we keep it at the same price at the 4.9 and use the extra money to help upgrade some more of the kitchens?
Well, she's built in, she's built in cost using her fund balance to upgrade kitchens. This is operational budget.
She's put in 500,000.
And she has put in equipment into the budget
It's all there.
for her schedule upgrades, instead of us seeming to come every year and say, we want to have a schedule. So she's built that in next year with $500,000.
If she was to have a shortfall, she could always come back to the board.
Exactly.
And her fund balance is very healthy, and that always subject to change, but right now she's in that program's in a very good position to have a very strong operational budget, as well as fund balance to fall back on as needed for those upgrades outside of what she's built into the budget. So if there are things that do pop up, she has some security there with her fund balance to address.
Any more discussion? Can we vote, Jennifer, please? Oh, I'm sorry, Jack.
Just a quick question. Her pay would increase by 6%, even that we didn't do everybody else's increase as far as the supervisors and directors, because it's in this budget, that on this proposed, is that not whoever?
I guess you calculated the increase?
No, I'm just saying, that looks like probably 6% or whatever. I'm saying, because her pay comes out of here, Mr. Boyd, is what I'm asking.
Her budget's standalone. When the board made the decision to move all the personnel costs and benefits to the school nutrition budget, then it sustains itself.
Right, but I'm saying though, if we said all supervisors got a 5% increase,
Yeah, I need to let, he's been working with her.
She's
directly.
under the same director pay scale as those in the general fund. What you're seeing is a 5% increase plus the next year's step. So there is a natural
Okay.
step, because she advances a year,
Yeah,
then the 5%. So when you consider the step, it's slightly, it is more than 5, but that's just because she used up another year.
Yeah, and I guess my question was, is if we give all supervisors 5%, would she get another 5% other than what she's already paying? Okay. Okay, that's just
You
one.
just didn't want to see it done.
Yep. I
No,
just
no,
asked.
it would not.
Okay.
Okay. Any more discussion? All right, I think everything's up to vote.
Mr. Irvin, how do you vote?
Yeah.
All approved.
That's the only
Oh, okay, okay.
Yep.
Mr. Winter?
I just was recommending, I was talking to Mike, and Mr. Boyd about this before, and you know, there was a state law going around last year to propose that the Board of Education would be the same as their funding body. And I brought up a policy to bring this up, and they said, you know, the best thing would be just to, since it's a budget item, is to just bring it up there. So that would just be matching the county commission's, our funding body's compensation and keeping them together, and it would stay that way from now on. So I know we've talked about that for several years and never come up with anything, but does that need to be a motion? I need to make a motion then that the Washington County Board of Education's compensation will match the Washington County, Tennessee County Commissioners' compensation starting on July 1st, 2023.
Have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Discussion.
Was I can't support it. I didn't take this job to make any money. I mean, I'll take the insurance, but I just
I don't
feel
think
like,
anybody took it for the money.
I mean, there's other boards out here. Johnson City don't get paid.
That's in their state charter, correct?
So I'm privileged to get what I get and thankful, I guess, so. Y'all, whatever, but I have to vote against it.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Oh, wait, could you explain this again? Did they get a raise?
This, you know, last year, they brought this up, several boards of education brought that up, that they would get paid the same as their funding body. That's all this is just saying that Washington County Board of Education will be paid the same as Washington County Commissioners.
And it'll be a straight number. You don't get paid from,
For meetings.
you know, for meetings or whatever. You just get one, I guess, salary per year or per month.
So right now we get paid per meeting.
Right now you get paid per meeting. And this is just,
This would say no.
and after talking with Brad, it just makes his end of it a whole lot easier for budgeting. It's just one number. It don't never go up or down.
Doesn't matter how many things you attend, it's one number.
So it's one set price
But
every
it's,
month.
you know, some months we don't even have a meeting.
We have,
We have
We always
one, I
have
mean,
one.
we have one meeting and that's all.
but we could have called meetings every time and it wouldn't cost us no more.
Right.
Where the extra money comes in is when we start taking the tours of the schools.
Uh-uh.
No, I mean,
Oh, yes.
This year?
Yes. So,
It would basically shift it to a monthly
cost.
allocation regardless if you met twice, 3 times.
So it could come out pretty close to even, couldn't it?
No,
Yes.
there's not a whole lot of difference.
Okay.
Depending on what you had, I mean, when we met for COVID, it's hard to tell what we spent.
Yeah, and then when we
It
did
was really
director
close.
search, we had, called meetings 3 or 4 times a month. So, any more discussion? Let's vote, Jennifer, please.
Ms. Oaken, Mr. Irvin, how do you vote?
No.
It carries with 2 noes.
Thank you. Mr. Boyd?
Okay, yes, sir. So, yeah, well, that's the actual budget sheet, so if you'll pass those out.
Does that start
July 1st.
July 1st then?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's what it is.
Do we still get travel checks and stuff when we go on our,
Yeah, you'll get reimbursed for your
Has
travel.
nothing to do with that. Only thing it does is our meetings.
It's your monthly, whatever you call it. That's part 2 of the budget sheets.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You do.
I can't believe you gave yourself a raise. You got a budget last year.
Others are set.
Huh?
I said, I can't just cut your, I just can't believe you give yourself a raise.
Is there enough to get
You ain't
everybody
got a
that
budget.
copies? You need that? Is there enough? Yeah, there's, I'm passing another copy around.
So, what I've provided you, what Brad's put together and Brad's team, I mean, the last meeting we had, the big adjustment that the board had directed us was, embed the $1,250 for certified staff across the board, increase in the salary schedule. Add $3 an hour and bring the lowest paid entry-level hourly wage up to $13 and then carry it up from there. There was an additional amount for IA special education of $2 on top of that, so adjust the scale for that. And then there was a 5% increase for supervisory, whether classified, non-certified or certified. And Brad has incorporated that. So he's had to, him and his team have essentially gone through every employee's individual pay and fixed costs and done exact calculations on that. So this cost reflects not estimates, but an exact calculation of those improvements.
Bus drivers also.
Did he get the bus drivers?
And the bus drivers as well, yes, thank you. And the adjustments of the bus drivers. So all of the adjustments in wages and salaries that the board at the last conversation directed us. Brad has added a column to the sheet that doesn't have any highlights on it. That is the actual budget sheet you see on the far right. He had prepared options prior to the meeting before of the 1%, 2%, 3%, which are past discussions in the budget process. But based on the direction, now we went to that specific adjustments in the salaries or improvements, and you see that on the far right for 23, 24. You also can see in the budget worksheet on that far right, it mirrors the same. So the first, everything on the left that begins with a 4 is a revenue. Just kind of orientates you, reminds you of the budget worksheet. So everything with a 4 to in the line item basically is a revenue. So everything on this first page you're seeing is revenues, income that's coming to the board, whether through local taxes or through state. Particularly this year with the transition to TISA, the state funding will be referred to as TISA, but I will also go a step further and say state funds, because TISA model is a split between essentially 70% state and 30% local. So this is what state funds will be coming to us on the revenue source. So that's like the detailed budget document that's in your hand that Brad has prepared and made adjustments. That what I think tonight's discussion will help lead us is this other page that you will see. It's a 3-page document that has highlights. It's actually something you're very used to from past budgets. Those of you that have been through the budget process, a Brad summary sheet that he provides the board. So this reflects the changes made in the far right column on that master budget sheet. So I'm looking at the sheet with highlights. And to explain what the highlights are, the board asked me to designate what I prioritize, and not just me, but in our work together looking at capacity and just priority. So I've went through and highlighted items, the number. We've also numbered on the far left of this worksheet each item. So as we talk, you can say item 15, page 1. There's page numbers at the bottom, so maybe that'll help our conversations. But the top section on that sheet on page 1, as Brad has identified, is the quote must-haves. These are fixed costs. These are rolling over from one year to the next. And also, as you will notice, the column that's tagged 1250 certified, flat rate classified, 5% management, that's the direction and the adjustments made based on the feedback from the board the last meeting. So that far right column is really, based on that is what we're focusing on these increases. The top section, the must-haves, if you will look, and I've highlighted the number, $5.537 million and a few more dollars is the increase associated with those changes on the must-haves. Brad has gone through and accounted for increases across the board: electricity, water, sewage, natural gas, all of those kinds of utilities and fixed costs. Our revenue sharing for university school, there's an increase expected there that's built in. Additional textbook dollars as we're purchasing a pretty significant textbook purchase this year with math adoption and moving into future adoption. Liability increase, insurance increases we expect. And then you see some deducts that Brad was included to kind of clean up, I guess, that section.
Ms. Buchanan?
So, I thought we already approved the math books for this year. I thought that was on our agenda.
You
last time.
approved the purchase, this is the
Okay.
budget.
Okay. So, on number 88, where it says non-recurring expenses,
Mhm.
so are those math textbooks already set for that?
We,
Like,
right, so
I mean.
we originally budgeted to use ESSER dollars,
Oh.
1.5 million, but we cannot use all of those funds in ESSER 3 for the textbook purchase because it's a 6-year cycle and the purchase would exceed the 24 deadline. So we can get a good portion of the purchase using ESSER, but we're gonna have to supplement with local dollars to have the full purchase of the math textbooks in K through
Is it this
12.
number
That's our estimate, yes.
that we're gonna have to use for local?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Toadstone?
Where in this would it show anything for establishing additional stipends?
This is discussion on the price.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor. There's extra.
Versus
That's in a separate process, it's in the differentiated pay plan. We will build that, Brad and I have discussed, we can build that amount when we seek approval of the differentiated pay plan. And what's been proposed, we would build that out of the salary line items.
Okay. And this, let's see, number 50. This does not include establishing an additional counselor. Am I correct?
Right.
And how many?
That was a miss on my part, Mr. Huddlestone, that should be highlighted. That's one of my priorities for Grandview Elementary School.
Yes, sir.
That should be highlighted, that's a mistake on my part.
Thank you.
The number 50 is highlighted.
Yes, we should be highlighting that. That position is of the priorities of new positions, especially school level. Grandview as second counselor is a recommended priority on my part. And then because of the size of Ridgeview and matching Doones Creek, which Ridgeview has more students, a second assistant principal.
anything else missed highlighted, Mr. Boyd?
No, I believe Mr. Huddlestone caught that one. I believe everything else was appropriately marked.
There was one item I had called and asked Brad about on this, and it was for bus drivers. What he showed us, I think, last budget on the increase for our bus drivers included them all except the 0 to 2 year bus drivers. And I had asked him, I don't want to leave those employees out, whatever we do. And I did ask him to figure them at $3, the same as everybody else. But I don't know what that amounted to or nothing, but
Little over 10K, and it is already baked in.
it is okay.
To what you're looking at.
So the 0 to 2 year old bus drivers are included.
So what we did on the tiered scale is we upped that about $3 a day from 0 to 2 years, and from year 3 forward, we kept the exact same amount you had already seen for those increases.
Okay, thank you.
No, increase in coaches supplements or anything?
I mean, as far as where the budget's already stretched, my suggestion there, and also with other supplements and talking with Mr. Huddlestone on some additional supplemental pay, my suggestion is as we look to next year's budget, that be one of the items. We don't need to hire an outside agency. I think we form a group of, you know, a cross-section of different members from ADs and others, and we bring a recommendation of supplement increases and maybe even additions and changes to next year's budget in March.
I'd also,
Go, you go ahead.
I'd also like to see others, not just coaches, but like some of the people we've had to present to us, like the girls who code, some of those people that meet with the group.
Well, that,
I don't, oh, so you'll,
that
that'll be
was Mr.
looked at, yeah.
Huddlestone's request is to
Okay.
find out, but you know, what we found out kind of when you dig deep on that, there's a lot of things happening that may not have been approved by the board, and not in a bad way. People are taking upon themselves to do, so, you know,
Well, yeah,
that'd
there'd
be
have to
part.
be guidelines, right?
We'd have to, because
Okay.
Yes.
not anyone, I mean, we have to have some expectations and some guidelines.
Exactly.
Because someone that just decides they're gonna do something with, it may not merit a supplement.
Right.
So the yellow is the added to the budget.
Yeah, the only thing was that item, line 50, where I left off the Grandview Counselor Edition.
That was the wish list of the schools, I take it, right?
A lot of them were, some of them, you know, my approach here is just like every year, we have to look at growth, and if there are positions that have to be added, we'll have to prioritize to do that. Their specific requests are in addition to that, and again, certainly want to support the schools. That's our primary mission, because that's where our students are. But these additional personnel requests are above and beyond what we can do right now. Yes.
So we're looking
So
at,
my question is we allotted how much out of our fund balance to finish our budget last year?
So it ended up being around $10 million.
Have we used that?
Well, we haven't finished the year yet, of
Right.
course. The tracking right now suggests that we probably will not, because remember on the budget side, the county commission does, they don't let us budget our full sales tax, so we're
Right.
guessing, you know, 3 to 4 million more in sales tax revenue will come in than was budgeted, so that helps that. The other is expenses. You know, we try to budget for a worst case scenario, and right now the expenses, I want to have caution on that because we've added a lot of expenses. But I can say through February, which goes March, well, I'll have that done here in a day or two, but you know, the tracking was still favorable. When I say the tracking was favorable, I think there's a fair chance we'll come close to breaking even, but I don't want to go out and officially say that yet because, you know, we're still caught. I think we've got another property purchase coming up that y'all will talk about. That's not factored into any of that. That's, you know,
Right.
so, and anything else that's not in the budget that comes up the next few months, that's gonna eat away. So we very well may use some fund balance. It's just right now, the current tracking suggests we've got a good shot at maintaining. So, again, it's gonna depend on how much new expenses we tack on here the next couple months.
So the total would be both of these highlighted for all of it, or does it include others on the other
it's on the
page?
back.
Yeah, I added that at the top of each of these
So it's all
optional
together.
sections. Those represent the cost of the items I've highlighted. The very bottom, you'll see is a number that Brad had put in there that totals everything.
8.6 million.
Okay, thank you.
In regards to number 17, which I support you for, having learned all the duties that go on there, what do you see that third person taking over from the other people that are doing it now? What are you thinking of?
Well, I mean, the workload, and that's in Brad's division, but, you know, and he definitely has identified the need, but just the benefits alone is a huge lift that those two ladies, I mean, they're getting it done, but they're at the expense of other things that they need to do. At one point, there were, to my understanding, 3 individuals that were managing HR. as far as all the work and processes, and we're down to 2.
And they didn't have benefits back then either.
And they carry benefits in HR, which is where benefits belong, not payroll. Benefits belong in the human resources.
It's not added in this.
That's this position.
Oh,
right
okay.
here, number 17.
Okay. Mr. Flynn?
Mr. Boyd, I'm sorry, I may have been looking at this when you were talking about
That's
the
fine.
textbooks.
I do the same thing.
It says math textbooks 880, which I remember you
Yes.
talking about that. But then also, again, it's got 620 for
Right.
textbooks. Did you already answer that? I'm sorry.
Well, the 880 is to address the cost that we expect with math textbooks for general purpose.
Yes, sir.
The 626 is other textbooks that we need to have as a recurring, it's a recurring line item amount. So actually, yeah, 880 and 600,000 is 1.4 million.
I mean, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't.
No,
know.
you're correct. That's a good question. It's not an accidental redundancy. It was put in there on purpose.
Of that 8 million more that we're asking and doing is the TISA money. Is it, how much more are we getting of it? Is that
Okay.
correct?
So our original discussion last year, and the board made the huge improvement and readjustment of the certified teacher scale based on the projection that we would get about $8 million more through the TISA model than DEP. And we had just verified, and we're always still cautious because we'll get some more updates through July. But, you know, Brad reached out to the main person at the state, Mary Ann Dursky, who we trust, well, pretty strongly. It looks like we're gonna be in the neighborhood of $10 million. So that's why, in looking at next year's budget, you know, we're not looking at a $16 million fund balance use to balance the budget. Right now, without any of these additions, it's 6.6 million with the salary increase.
What's the total package of this?
So in your budget spreadsheets, which would be the best way to look,
92, 181, 870.
on the expenditure, that would be close to your last page.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, on the actual detailed budget spreadsheet.
Yeah, it looks like total income, revenues and other sources was 86, 291, 465, which is roughly $5.9 million.
Yeah, the far right, the far bottom, you see total estimated expenditures at 92, 181, 870. And then using $6.6 million of fund balance, I believe we're in that neighborhood. And correct me if I get off track, Brad.
Page 2 is 6.2.
Yeah, we would balance the budget as proposed, but does not include any of the optional.
That's what the extra $3 million is.
Extra $3 million,
Point
yeah.
something out there. We know we can't budget our full sales tax.
Yes, sir.
The estimate is that's at the revenue's at least $3 million understated because we know we're not allowed down at the commission to do that. So I feel pretty confident saying it's at least $3 million understated because 19 million is what I have the budget for sales tax. 18 million is what it was last year. I've at least got verbal confirmation I'll be okay at 19, but the commission still couldn't back that up. But that 6.2 million is, you know, probably 3 million overstated in reality. And as Mr. Boyd pointed out, it doesn't include the optional additional items there on the other budget sheet.
Ms. Buchanan?
Year to date, what is our fund balance?
Right now, it's in the area where it's extremely high, but we go backwards about 9 million. We're running about 32 if we look at it today, but we have to remember, we go backwards about $9 to $10 million in May and June, and that's just a normal part of the revenue cycle. So what counts is what's it at June 30th. That's where the auditors measure it each year. Around 23 last, and that's, you know, I think there's a good chance we can hold even or very close.
So what would be the total package, including what we've got optional?
8.661.
Yeah, I don't have the sheet in front of you, Mr. Boyd.
Yeah, so the total expenditures here would be an increase of 8.661 million from
So the top part, it's already baked into the budget's 5.5, so we would add about 3.1 if
Yeah,
I'm understanding
yeah,
that
yeah.
right. So that 6.2 would go to 9.3. We know it's at least 3 million overstated, so that in reality, it'll be
Yeah,
about.
that's
$6
with
million.
the highlighted, with the small adjustment with the counselor that I did not highlight, so another 60,000 or
So
70,000.
maybe a silly question, our recurring salary expenditures from last year, it's already in there. And this is just all above and beyond that, since it's recurring from last year, it's already in there. This is-
And the TIS is supposed to take care of that, because we used fund balance to do it last year. Right? For our,
Yeah, I mean,
for the
for
teachers.
budgeting purposes, we did.
We actually accomplished exactly what we discussed, you know, made that huge investment in salaries with the expectation of increased funds. So, yeah, it more or less did bring us to that. This is above that.
Are we going to make a motion on this, or do we need more time to think about it?
Or if you pull the trigger, I'll be buying it.
Looks like that this total package is $8,725,632.
I think it's 8,661,000.
Did you add line item 50?
Adding 50 that I did not include in my
So,
highlight.
we're looking at how much money that we're gonna have out of fund balance to balance our budget.
It sounds like the way this is presented about 9.1 or something, you know, right, give or take a few dollars.
And we used what last year?
It's actually on
Same amount.
10,370,000, that's on the first column.
On the big budget sheet.
Yeah, yeah, that's where it's at right now. Now, we know what we just said,
Okay, yes.
that, now, and what we just said is we think that's not gonna happen based on current track.
Are we gonna discuss it and try to make cuts, or are we okay with it? Is that what we're thinking about?
Well, I think, my opinion, we've asked them to come back with what we asked for raises. And then Mr. Boyd's come back with the second half of this and gave us what he thinks we need,
Optionals.
optional. So with that being said, I just feel like if we're in agreement and can do it, that's where we need to be. That's Mr. Boyd's recommendation on the optional items based upon what we wanted.
Give
The
us that,
highlighted.
give us that grand total one more time.
If I've got it figured right, I've got, $8,725,632.
Is that number 50?
That's adding number 50.
You added number 50. okay.
Adding number 50 to the 8.661639.
Well, then,
Yes, Mr. Hamilton.
I was just gonna see, how much would that leave in our fund balance?
So let's say everything happened just like we got it budgeted, and let's say we break even this year, so we're gonna hold that 23.5 million fund balance. Then, this would be budgeted, we said at a 9.1 million, but we know it's 3 million overstated because the sales tax will go back 6. So around 17 to 17.5 million, if all revenues and all expenses happen exactly as we have it budgeted next year.
Okay, thank you, I'll
if
make a
nothing's
motion.
gonna change, I
And
make a
we're
motion.
gonna pull $9 million out for,
On paper, it'll be 9 million, we know it'll really be about 6.
I mean, it's on paper this year, this budget, 10 million, and it's not going to be
Yeah.
but we're gonna,
10 million.
I'll make a-
however much we're gonna spend on upgrades and stuff like that.
Sure.
We're not figuring none of that right now, so,
We ain't spent it yet.
well, I understand, but we're fixing to pass this budget.
I would suggest to the board, and I would love to pass the budget tonight, but I think if there's any more direction, barring, if you go and ask Brad to recalculate all these raises, it's gonna take more than 2 days. But if you're good with the raises, I would say, any more direction tonight, and we come in hand ready to kind of summarize one more time with the intention of asking you to consider approval on Thursday night.
Because we do have a called meeting prior to a workshop Thursday for budget. Mr. Huddleston.
Question, in the things that were not picked to add to the budget, what is that doing to our overall program? Like, for example, number 60, math teacher at Daniel Boone. By not bringing that person in, how is that then affecting the math program? The requests for pre-K, teachers and instructional assistants and such that wasn't funded. What, in effect, by not doing that, is it doing to the pre-K program?
So, you know, you look on the far right, those are the schools.
Right.
You know, currently they do not have a pre-K program. My understanding, they have attempted to in the past, and they haven't had the participation. But we want to continue to be, you know, try to introduce, but you know, if we can't this year, we're going to continue to work to try to provide that service at that part. The opening the new Jonesboro, it was a startup cost, it is listed. And there would be, without a doubt, filled seats at the new Jonesboro Elementary for pre-K. So that's why I highlighted that as priority to begin that next year. With it being potentially after that self-sufficient, because it would be after the startup funds, startup year, then we would go to tuition-based like we did at Boots Creek to sustain that classroom.
Okay. What about 60 and 70?
Okay. So the math teachers, you know, that very well could, but I also know, and that one's specific to Daniel Boone.
Right.
Within the growth, that to me is when I said earlier, each year when we start the school year, we have to look at growth. And that could be over the summer within the available funds in our salary line item that I could authorize an addition without it being, what might happen is we add this position, the budget adds more money to the salary line item, and it would just be more money in the salary line item when I might can cover it with, I'm pretty confident I can cover it in the existing line item.
Right, I just want to make sure that we're not
No,
cutting
absolutely.
a program out by not hiring this math teacher.
Absolutely, and math, of course,
What are you going to do with math?
And some of the others
My
too,
favorite.
what I also have the advantage of seeing is some of the numbers. And sometimes principals have to make decisions, particularly in a high school, that they may have to look at a position and repurpose it for a higher priority.
Mr. Cannon.
So let me ask about number 63. So do we not have anybody there during the summer to man the phones and take care of the office? Because
Other than the principal now. So that was his request. If he
is
could-
that, are they an 11-month program?
We're almost 12 months probably.
So let me
Because they have
ask
some
this.
kids that continue to get their credits and graduate through July.
When we have summer school at the other schools, do we have a secretary in the office?
Yeah, we provide for clerical support in summer school.
I'd like to request that we put that one on there then, because
Well-
that would be equal with the rest of the schools.
I understand, and the reason I didn't highlight that, it was put there because it was a budget request. Again, I think that Brad and I can address that need. In trying to get the board, the schools to ask what they want, but also understand it doesn't have to be in addition to the budget. We can
So
find ways
this
to
can, you
make
can
it
find
happen.
another way to make that
And
happen.
that's why some of these things aren't highlighted, because I don't want to add to the budget.
Right.
If I
just-
believe we can address it without adding to the budget.
Okay.
But I wanted to show what they requested.
I
That's what Brad's
just
intent.
know how important that is to the hospital and getting their credits and
Oh,
the
yeah.
kids being, and if there's nobody there to answer the kids'
Right.
questions or the parents' questions, that's
I agree.
not a great thing for our system.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. As you see, I mean, the cost is very manageable.
It is, and that's why I was
Without adding it
like,
to
why
the
are we
budget.
not doing that? I
Okay.
understand that.
And that was his request. It was just put in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Hammonds?
Is anyone gonna make a motion to proceed with this?
I think what he requested us to do is let this saturate into us,
Okay.
and then make the motion Thursday, if everybody's in agreement, at our called meeting prior to the workshop.
Orthel.
I mean, you're welcome. I mean, of
Unless
course,
you want
the
to-
board can do what they want to do. I
I
was just
say
trying
proceed,
to.
and I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second discussion.
Let me ask just a question about our motion, and I just seconded. The budget as presented the highlighted items plus the one that was just missed, number 50.
On line 50,
Yes.
item 50.
Just,
To be presented to the county commission.
just for clarification, is what you,
Yeah, this one.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
yes, yes. Mr. Osborne?
Have we given the sufficient notice that's required by the state that the community knows that we're adopting the budget tonight?
It was
Is
the
it-
5 days prior to.
It was advertised according to our policy.
Plus it was on the budget calendar.
Plus it's on budget.
And the board approved budget calendar, and actually, we're on track with the budget calendar.
So basically, if this is approved tonight, we will not have a call meeting Thursday, correct? Prior to? or will we?
Unless you all just want to.
That's what,
We do
that's
have
what,
we do have a field trip we need to get approved.
yeah, we still have a workshop, we just won't have a call meeting prior to.
But Jennifer said we,
But what, Jennifer, I'm sorry?
I said we have that one field trip you all will need to approve. and-
Can we do it tonight?
it's not on the agenda.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we approve this tonight, when's the meeting for commission?
We've been, May 8th is when we're scheduled to present to the commission.
Okay.
The first time, as we know, it's likely not going to be the last time.
Correct.
In the month of May and June.
Thank you.
Is that something that we are to attend as board members?
Always appreciated.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And what date again?
If you want to present, I'll certainly prepare you for it.
Any more discussion?
Well, it goes to the Health Education Committee first, right? Then it'll go to the full commission.
Not the
when
budget.
it's new budget for next year, they don't make us go through HEW.
Okay.
It's new budget.
Yeah, the new budget.
You know,
It'll go to the budget committee.
we're spending a lot of money on this budget, and in a way, it's, I can see some of them saying that we're overspending, and I can see some that's not gonna say nothing. I'm just worried about later on down the road. I mean, I really am.
Understandable.
You never know from year to year what's,
I know, and,
and
you
I
know,
think that Tennessee's on the roll that they'll continue to look at improving education each year, I hope, funding.
Okay, let's vote, Jennifer, please.
Voting's open. Mr. Irvin, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
I vote yes, Jennifer.
Okay.
Pick that.
Ms. Buchanan?
Let me hit the okay button.
Okay.
So sorry, I forget I have to vote twice.
All approved.
Thank you. Yes.
I'd like to add to the agenda the field trip, to discuss the field
I
trip.
second.
Yeah, you want me to pull it up? so you can-
Please.
Please.
Yeah,
We have a motion, we have a second, we have any more discussion? She's gonna pull up about the field trip, basically, so we won't have to have a call meeting Thursday. And to vote, yes.
No, we have to vote now on adding it to the agenda.
You have to add it to the agenda first.
Yes.
Ma'am, and then you can
Yes.
vote on the item after you add it to the agenda.
Any discussion on adding that to the agenda today? All right, Jennifer, let's vote, please.
Can I please?
Okay.
Was it ready?
I vote yes, Jennifer.
Thank you. Mr. Irvin, how do you
Where,
vote?
where are we going on the vacate?
That's what I'm gonna pull it up. This is just to
This
add
is
it.
just to add it to
We have to add it
the
first.
All
agenda.
right, yeah, I'll vote for it.
Yeah, she's.
All approved.
Thank you.
Carol,
Now Jennifer's gonna bring up
follow me.
the agenda item.
I'm going to a different meeting. I'm going to Thursday's meeting.
So I need to do it.
Well, I can go
It's,
Thursday.
you know, it's overnight.
Yeah.
Keith,
It's
Right.
they're,
already the end of Thursday.
Keith, they're going to Vegas and they need a chaperone.
It's the
I
Daniel
can't
Boone,
go.
Daniel Boone High School, May 2nd through the 3rd, 2023. It's the environmental team. It's a competition.
Oh,
And they're going to the Clyde York 4-H camp in Crossville, Tennessee.
Do we have a recommendation?
I recommend that we approve.
I second.
Discussion? Let's vote, please, Jennifer.
I'm gonna do a roll call.
Okay,
I'm in a
that's fine.
different meeting. Mr. Huddleston?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Irvin?
Yes.
Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
All agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. And
Well,
if I just, so from here, since you all have approved draft one of the general purpose FY '24 budget, Brad and I will prepare the presentation that we will use for the county commission meetings, the budget committee meetings. As I said, we're scheduled May 8th, and maybe 9th, May 8th, 9th. But we will have our board meeting before then, so actually we will have the opportunity of that prepared presentation to give it to the board at your May board meeting, so you will see and even can give feedback if you see that we might need to make some last minute changes before we present on the next week. So we will be presenting that to the board at the next at the May board meeting prior to us presenting it to the commission,
Can you,
Right, okay.
based on what you've approved tonight.
can you send out when the budget meeting is?
Yes, this is perfect. I didn't include that, I'm sorry, on my update.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the property for sale next to Gray School. I think you all had gave Jerry and I the authority to negotiate and to meet with the owner. We found out the asking price, I think, was $725 or $751. But after meeting with the owners, they have settled on a price of $682,000 for the property. It's up to this board if we want to, move forward for future use. As you know, we've got a meeting with Johnson City Thursday on growth. Sooner or later, we're going to have to do something, one, two, or both. So I'll leave it at that for discussion.
Do you know what the tax appraisal is on the property?
I have no idea.
298.
Was it 298?
Of course, that's been 4 years ago and everything's gone up, but I think it's still too high.
I make a motion that we offer them $50,000 over top of what the tax appraisal is.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay? Discussion?
I think we need to wait till after we know what they want. I think we need to wait till after we talk to Johnson City and so.
We're to the point where, we, at some point in time, we're either going to have to build a new school or we're going to do an addition to Gray or Ridgeview, or both.
Well,
Or restructure, restructure.
What's the house worth? Is it,
The house is
property is worth more today than what it was. So if that house was, that house is on the market, is it worth 280 or 298, or is it worth 400 or?
I think they'd ask like 450 probably.
Yeah.
Realistically, what is that?
Of course, I don't do residential. Whitney can probably answer that better than I can, but I will say the value of the house and the land as it sits is between $450,000 and $500,000.
That's what I say.
I think maybe 450 might be a good counter.
I don't think you'll do it.
You won't.
Well, I don't think, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I was just there yesterday delivering something to Gray, and I just don't think it's the big residential right beside the school that they think it's going to be. I don't know, would it ever be commercial?
My opinion is they're price gouging. They know the school's interested in it.
Well, we basically get price gouged on everything.
I agree.
I've come to learn that.
So,
Going on 3 years.
I could up my pay a little bit, my motion.
You're not gonna get it.
Well,
Here's the
okay.
thing, what's it worth to us versus what it is worth to others? It's
Exactly.
worth more to us than anybody.
But we've not had to have it for 30 years because Gray's been there, and I had 1,200 kids at Gray.
You can't do that anymore.
No.
Yeah, I can.
No, you
I'd
can't.
have to add on.
Right, There you go.
But I still,
How you gonna get in if you add on?
I'm gonna take that football field.
That
How
was
you
with
gonna get
6
to the
portables,
football field?
8
Go
portables.
through the
though,
school.
Keith.
Go through the school. We didn't use the football field anyway.
I
That's,
just say,
that's my argument. I mean,
yes, you're probably overpaying for it, but in the big scheme of things, in a multi-million-dollar deal to add on to the school, it's not.
It's
it's
pennies.
taxpayers' money,
It is.
and I can't.
But that's where I think we're saving them money from spending $100 million to build a school in 5 to 10
Right.
years.
It's a cheaper option, and a couple $100,000 on a piece of property, more than it's worth, is really to open up the gate to add on there, to save money, is worth it.
And keep in mind, we had the opportunity to buy land next to Boone, and we did not. We did, you know, make use of the land next to Crockett, and I'm, you know, glad we did do that. So this is a one-time opportunity for us.
What'd you say the number was? They're asking number.
682 is what they told me that they had decided on.
Are they gonna put it on the, they're offering it to us, then they
Off
are
this
gonna
prior
put it in the
to
hands of
putting it on the
the
market.
So is that what they're gonna put it on the market at 682?
I have no idea. But you know well as I do, if they put it on the market, somebody buys it, you know, they may tell us $1 million if and when we want it.
Well, maybe.
What's that? David, you have something, or?
Oh, I didn't know if about building up, if that was is Town Acres doing that? Do you know?
Yeah.
No, they're completely,
That'd be a tough
Completely tear
one,
down.
honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, there's,
Structurally, you'd have
yeah.
to.
I think with Thursday morning, that'd probably be something that hopefully they'll share.
I think I agree with Chad, I'd rather wait to meet
see
with
what,
Johnson
meet with Johnson
City.
City.
and Get some type of,
But I would like to leave the called meeting open for Thursday.
that's fine with me.
So,
We still
you
got a
guys
motion.
talked to them, how long did they give us to decide?
I basically told Ms. Story that we would discuss tonight, and, you know, if we come up with a board decision, I'd tell him. If not, then I'd tell him what we discussed. So, if you, you know, I don't have a problem calling him and saying, you know, we discussed it, we want to wait till we meet with Johnson City. I don't think he had a problem with that.
And here's another thing I'll just throw out there. If you don't buy it and somebody else buys it, how much are you gonna get next time to buy it when you need it?
That's why I just,
That's the thing.
You keep saying we need it, Whitney. We don't need it.
We don't
We
need
don't,
it
we
today,
did,
but
but we don't need it now, later, because.
you don't know that.
If we, well, I mean,
How do you know that?
if we add 200 kids to that school, and we had to build on to that school, where our portables was sitting at, there's our property where we can add on, or we go up on top of it.
How do you get access
There
to
were 8
portables?
portables.
We had
There were
what?
8 portables.
Doesn't
Yeah,
it?
we had 8 portables. They went through the school to get to the portables.
How many, is it 2 acres or more?
2 acres.
2 acres, and it butts up against the fairground park.
No, it don't butt up against the fairground.
yes, it sure
Parking.
does.
Oh,
The
that
parking.
does, yeah, our
Yeah.
property don't.
The parking does.
No, if we was to purchase this, then the back side would butt up to the fairground property, yes.
I'm still interested, but I just
Well, let's
don't
counter.
know.
it. Let's make them an offer. That's what I was saying.
That's 2 out of the.
Well, it don't, I mean, they can come back. I'll say 100,000. I'll go 100,000 over top of what our tax appraisal is.
That's worth less than market value.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can't go by tax appraisals right now.
Right, that's been for.
But
5
Tax
years.
It's
appraisal,
still-
you don't buy anything. with
It's
that.
still an offer. All they can say is no, or they may counter back and say 550,000 or 600,000.
I'll be willing to throw out a number after talking about the long-range plans Thursday
Sounds
morning.
good. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I don't think you got a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, second for discussion.
All
So
the
you can
discussion.
discuss it.
What is the motion?
He said offer 50,000 above the appraised value was the motion.
So we need to know the appraised value before we just throw out a number.
Well,
Yeah, but we gotta vote on this.
Okay.
I call for the question.
all right, let's vote, Jennifer, please.
Oh, shoot.
Voting is open. Mr. Irvin, how do you vote?
I vote yes, I'll be the only one, but I still vote yes.
I'm not ready to.
I just,
Yeah, that's way too.
well, I would up it to 100, but still, I can't.
Ms. Flainer, or I'm sorry, wait till she gives us
Yeah,
our.
well,
I can't amend, can I?
No.
Yep.
You have to make a new motion.
Ms. Buchanan, how did you vote?
I voted
You
no.
didn't. You voted no? Okay, you didn't show up. Waiting on Mr. Fleener.
Ma'am, I done give up.
Was that a yes?
No, ma'am.
No?
No.
He votes no. It fails.
Okay. Ms.
Two
Flainer.
yeses.
I would like, for the agenda purposes, I would like to postpone this discussion till Thursday night at our workshop.
I second
So we're
this.
gonna have a call
Yeah,
meeting.
Motion for that.
It's already in
Well, we
there.
already got one
We've
scheduled.
advertised the call meeting.
Yeah.
I second.
Discuss it, just don't vote on
No,
No, we don't have to have, we
Well,
don't have to have. a
it.
motion.
If he wants it voted on.
If you're voting on money, you did.
It's called.
Okay, we'll have to have a motion if we take action Thursday, I will have to have a motion.
I second.
What was your motion?
to postpone this discussion and have it on the agenda for the meeting on Thursday prior to our workshop.
Ms. Dillinger seconded. Discussion? All right, Jennifer, I vote, please.
Is there? Everybody still? Okay. Voting's open.
Vote yes.
Yes. Mr. Irvin, how do you vote?
I vote no.
Ms. Buchanan votes no.
No, because I want to have a meeting. Because I need someone to stop.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't have mine pulled up.
I just don't.
How do you
Yes,
vote?
ma'am.
Yes. Mr. Hammond votes, what'd you say?
Yes.
Yes. It carries with one no.
Okay. Anything else?
So just to clarify, I mean, obviously, we are moving forward with the meeting scheduled for Thursday. We have a call meeting option, and it'll be a normal workshop, so we can set the agenda for the
And I need to
May meeting.
request to Scott. that we have
Is that
a
the case?
Whatever we call it now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Clarity.
And just, so everyone knows, that we got a scheduled meeting with Johnson City, 8 a.m. Thursday. Then we have a call/workshop Thursday afternoon.